All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and I'm joined by my friend, compatriot, and scholar, Baselit Analyzer. How you doing, sir?
Hey, how you doing? It's going to be a good one tonight. I'm looking forward to this one. I can't believe we haven't done this one already. Yeah.
Well, what I was telling you, I could have swore we already did a movie review on this one. And then I realized, no, you told me to watch this movie, and that's why I had it downloaded. And I think I've watched it twice since I downloaded it, and then I watched it again today. But I literally had to search my YouTube channel and your YouTube channel because I could have swore we did a movie review on it, and it's right up our alley. So I'm excited for today's topic as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Yeah, we're live just here tonight on Church of the Eternal Logos. Man, we've done like 20 something movies. We've done a bunch together.
We have a bunch, and they're all in a playlist I have on movie reviews. They're all with you, and it's over 20. Somebody in the chat could probably let us know whether it is or not. But just want to tell everybody, if you want to support BLA or my work, BLA, Venmo, if you want to share those in the chat, your Venmo, PayPal, people could show you some support tonight. And then as well, if you're interested in supporting my work and channel, please send any questions or comments on Streamlabs or Dono Chat. And if you would like to use YouTube or give some YouTube membership, that's always a big plus. Always appreciate that. But yeah, there we go. BLA's dropping his link. So if anybody wants to show some love to BLA, and we have this is a sponsored stream. So a major thank you goes out to Aaron. God bless you and the family, brother. Really appreciate. He's sponsored a few movie reviews for us. I think 3. I think this is the 3rd one. And we're going to be talking about black magic, witchcraft, Satanism, summoning. The entire movie is about summoning the devil. And this movie is a great movie for bibliophiles. The whole premise is about works written in the 17th century about conjuring the devil to attain divine powers. So, yeah, I have some notes. I mean, you're going to be, I'm really interested because we haven't even talked about the film yet. People may think that we like share notes. We don't. We actually talk about life when we're backstage, and then we just go live, and whatever he says is the first time I'm about to hear it, just like you guys. But this is a Roman Polanski movie.
Yes,
you want
it
to give
is.
a little bit of an overview of the context of the film?
Yeah, so I'll just talk about Roman Polanski for a second. Polanski, everybody knows, it cannot come back to the United States. He's had the creeper shenanigans in the 70s, which were at Jack Nicholson's house. I've covered Polanski before in light of one of my very first streams. My very first stream, I talked about his Macbeth adaptation. And Macbeth was his first film right after the Sharon Tate, Charlie Manson events. And it's quite dark and interesting how it sort of plays a role in that in terms of informing the imagery within the film. And that sort of sets a theme for Polanski. I mean, he's an extremely dark filmmaker. Of course, Rosemary's Baby is where he really came to a head. He had a couple films before that. There are, I've covered the Charlie Manson, Tom O'Neill book, which goes into Polanski in depth, talking about Sharon Tate and Polanski and allegations of Satanism, satanic rituals, all sorts of shenanigans. But when that occurred, he left. He went to Paris, and he did a bunch of movies in the 80s, including Frantic, with one of the girls who's in this film, one of the actresses in this film, and Harrison Ford. Later on, of course, in 1999, the movie that we're about to cover is The Ninth Gate. And this one is interesting because it's one of the twin pillars of Luminate confirmed movies that came out in 1999. And it's one of the corners. I mean, if you're interested in anything in the esoteric, the occult, anything with Luminate confirmed at all, this is one of the cornerstone movies. This and Eyes Wide Shut came out the same year, which is incredible. And of course, it stars the incomparable Jonathan Depp.
One of my favorite performances of his, myself.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He really is fantastic in this, and it's got Lena Olin, sort of a European audience. A European cast, but it's got one of the best characters in this is Frank Langella plays the villain in this, Boris Balkan.
Yeah,
and
great
we're going to
character.
see that Boris Balkan. I've covered Boris Balkan before. I mean, Frank Langella, who's basically playing Boris Balkan again in the movie Brain Scan. For the old heads, they'll remember that movie from the 90s with Edward Furlong, where he plays another sort of. There's a bunch of esoteric stuff in that movie as well, and this movie, like DPH said, is great for bibliophiles. It's amazing for bibliophiles. It's great for European settings, and it's really interesting because it has a character who is Johnny Depp as Dean Corso is this unscrupulous kind of book dealer who ends up being a sort of book detective. And one thing that's really interesting about this, I've actually read the source book on this movie, and it's called Le Club du Mal, and it's by let me look up his name again. It's Arturo Perez Reverte, I think is his name. About 10 years ago. And the book is slightly different from the movie. It takes out the whole Alexander Dumas aspect of it. It's about a book detective looking for rare books, and then it goes into these secret societies, which we'll see in the film. But it's I mean, this is really like, this goes into the circles within circles and the elites and the European landscape, the landscape of book dealing, and how this plays a role in terms of something that is very terrifying in the movie, and that is finding the original text, which they say in the movie is supposedly co-written by Lucifer himself.
Right.
And you learn a lot about rare books, how they work, the various characters who are involved in this sort of very specific level of putting their money out there. Like the people that are involved are already either elites, they're hereditary elites, or they're involved in big business or big finance. Boris Balkan is one of those guys. Right. But we see that there are circles within circles. And I think I'm sure a lot of people have already seen this movie. And if you haven't seen this movie, I mean, it's really terrifying. I'll just say last thing, that the first time I saw this was in 1999 in my friend's basement. We decided to rent it from Blockbuster. And I remember
those are the good old days.
Yeah. And I remember sitting in the basement, and really it's kind of pretty hard to, like, I don't know if scare is the right word, but I was really taken in by this movie. It's very dark, and there's something about it. I've seen it now a million times, but it's very dark, very deep. From the opening scene, it really draws you in, and it's different from some of the other movies we've covered. We've covered Fallen and a couple other movies that sort of deal with this.
The Devil's Advocate.
Yes, the Devil. That one. This one is much more. It's not real. It's not realism that gives it its edge, but it's because it takes you on this journey and really makes you believe what they're doing here. These are the group of people that are going in the total opposite way purposefully, and it becomes a kind of magical realism. There's phantasmagoria within the film, but we're going to see what happens with this. So.
Right. No, I exactly to your point. I think what makes the movie so intriguing is the literality of the devil. So if you're coming at it from a Christian perspective, and I've done so many streams before on black magic, occultism, witchcraft, all this different stuff. And obviously from a Christian paradigm, all that stuff is real. And the summoning and conjuring of demons and the devil himself is something that is very real. And this whole movie is built upon the premise of these witches. A gentleman writes a book in the 17th century who he claims to have co-authored with Lucifer himself. And this was spawned by a witch coven who dedicated themselves to these orgiastic activities with the devil in the pursuit for, like, satanic illumination and Luciferianism. And when we look at it from that perspective, and before I became Orthodox, I was very much interested in the occult. And so for me, it takes on a little bit of a more sinister and realistic edge, because I do believe in these things. And I do believe that there are very wealthy, powerful people in the world who are collecting these very, very rare books about magic and the conjuring for the acquisition of power. So, like Boris Balkan, one of the things is that he is this sort of wealthy mogul who has the largest library dedicated to everything about Satan, only first edition copies.
Yeah.
And that is also true for Fargus. This is another gentleman. So the book, The Ninth Gates, or the Ninth Gate, and what is it? The Shadows.
The Kingdom of Shadows. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's 3 copies. A gentleman named Fargus in Lisbon, Portugal. And then the woman, what was her name? Baroness Kessler. Baroness Kessler, and then Boris Balkan, all 3 of which are dabbling in occultism, not out of an interest, but for the pursuit of power. And all of them have money and status. But what follows is death, right? So everywhere this book goes, people are dying, whether they're killing themselves or they're dying through more malicious endeavors. Some of them aren't totally clear, but to me, this is very real. And somebody in the chat a couple streams ago mentioned that they just started getting back into Christianity, and one of the things was that they realized evil is real. And I think that's true for a lot of people, right? This sort of anatheism, coming back to God after God, is like the realization, and maybe you go through rabbit holes or conspiracy theories, but you realize that evil is very real. But evil is kind of ambiguous. And from a Christian perspective, both God and the devil are personified. These are persons, and we believe in a theology of personhood. And so this whole book, or this whole movie and the book, but is about the person of Satan, the person of the devil, and how you can actually communicate and engage with and commune with this particular entity. So it's just interesting how many people in the last, really since the COOF, are becoming, their eyes are opening to lies, to things going on in the world, and they're searching for truth. And eventually that's a journey that brings you back to God. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the book is also a kind of Masonic occult Odyssey, with the tarot as a sort of signpost for where they go. All the characters that they meet in real life end up being almost supernatural avatars of the characters that they meet in the engravings within the book. So, for instance, when they go to the 2 twins in Portugal, right, with the guys with the mustaches, there's the guy with the keys, there's the key master there. And what's really, I think, frightening is that anybody can look at medieval engravings, and they're all sort of black and white, and they seem like we have an instance of the hanged man sort of starting off the film, and you notice the slight differences you remember those old like IQ sort of cartoons that they would give you about, like, notice the differences within the pictures, and that ends up being one of the things in this, and you see that it takes on a kind of anti-Trinitarian aspect, because there are 3 different writers, and there's a one version with a synthesis within the 3 that is going to end up being the Luciferian thing. And I think the ending, I'm not going to give away the ending yet, but
well, you can. I mean,
well,
anybody who comes to our movie reviews knows that spoiler alert.
Well, it's almost like, they're going to end up in some sort of our child-esque mansion at the end in Europe, some sort of French ancestral estate. Sort of reminds me of the Dutroux Castle and the Dutroux Affair, that horrible thing that happened in Belgium. And the strangest thing for me when I first watched it was I didn't understand in 1999 why, when he gets to the end of the film, because this is past the point of where he's being, ridden by the horror of Babylon, right? Towards the end of the film, when he walks into the castle, you see this bright light opening, like but you realize that he's walking into this, this sort of city of dis. He's walking into the gates of hell, but it's shining bright, and that didn't really make sense. I was, when I first saw it, I'm like a teenager, and I'm like, why isn't it darkness? Well, because it's Miltonian, the darkness is so dark, the darkness is visible. And it's this process of illumination that he goes through in the end. And so I think part of the Odyssey is like this character who is supposed to be this unscrupulous sort of atheistic character who ends up finding himself on the bad side at the end, where he's going to be the one to take over instead of Boris Balkan. And Boris Balkan really makes that clear. Like there's also they show the differences in terms of the people who go searching for the devil, where there's like part of it is the melodramatic people, where it's all like show and tell, and it's like a big festival, and he says nonsense. And then there are the other people who, like Baroness Kessler, whom I think, by the way, I remember that Baroness Kessler is thanked in the credits for this film, which adds a whole other meta level.
Real person? I didn't think
know that. I think she's a real person, and that Polanski knows her, and that sort of, we have a character who's like, she's disabled. She ends up the way that she does, right, but she does this purposefully.
Her right arm it doesn't exactly say amputate or whatever, but she doesn't have a right arm below the elbow. She only has a left hand, which again, in my mind, connects it back with the left-hand path of tantric spirituality, mysticism, and Satanism within a Christian context. We would consider that the left-handed path.
Yeah. And she is, this high society elite socialite who is clearly, that's her stated mission. She's one of the world authorities on devil worshiping literature, versus the other guy that they go to, who's in like a kind of Poe Gothic dilapidated castle. His books are on the ground, and he's playing a violin. He's a Paganini playing a violin, and it's sort of this. It's almost like there's a humility involved in this. Like it's almost a pure spirit going after the devil. Right. So there are all these different levels. We see the guy at the very beginning who unalives himself in his office filled with his, library, but then it ends up being his Gisela Maxwell wife, who's in the Order of the Silver Serpent. There's a huge Crowleyan involvement to this.
Right.
Crowley owned a huge collection of occult books that Jimmy Page bought for his Equinox bookstore, and Loch his Bulskin house at Loch Ness, and then his house on the Thames that Jimmy Page bought, and we see these various bookstores, antiquarian bookstores that specialize in the occult, and we sort of make our way through this network of those things. So we end up at the Georges Cinq hotel in Paris, and this is all very, very high elite stuff that's sort of different from many of the usual films where we take that route.
Right. Well, it connects it with power, right? Because the whole premise of this book is the acquisition of power. Mm-hmm. And that's really the point of Luciferianism and Satanism itself. So when you mentioned at the end of the film, Johnny Depp is this agnostic, atheistic book collector who the opening scene is him sort of ripping off people for a Don Quixote first edition. And he tells them that this library is worth so much, and they have this father who can no longer speak, so he's wheelchair bound. And Johnny Depp comes in here, Mr. Corso, and tells them, "Oh, this is worth $600,000, twice as much as maybe it's actually worth." But he says, "Well, these books right here, these aren't worth much, but I got $4,000 I could give you right now for them." When really those are the prized possessions. And I connected that, the opening scene and the ending scene, with Luciferianism, because Lucius is the light bringer, the Promethean figure, and Luciferianism, as opposed to outright Satanism, where it's a total inversion of Christianity. I've said this before, that when I was living in Berkeley, there was a transgender satanic priestess, and they were in a theistic satanic. They called it a church. I hate to use that term, but in a class on Western esoteric traditions, she talked about how they perform a sacramental ritual that sort of mimics the Catholic Eucharist, where they have a wafer and they put fecal matter, menstrual blood, like things that are, ridiculous, you would toxins, things that are disgusting, and they would consume it. And for them, this was a sort of rite of passage in regards to power, because they could transgress any boundary. But Luciferianism is a little bit more subtle, and Boris Balkan embodies that. Luciferianism is about attaining the light, but keeping it away from other people in the pursuit of power. Satanism is really about inverting God's creation. They're both part of the same network of demonic spirituality, but Mr. Corso at the beginning is using his knowledge to attain money and power in regards to the books from somebody through their ignorance. And at the end, him entering into the castle that's shining bright with light. This is the full Luciferian journey of his acquisition of knowledge and power. That's how I kind of took that.
Yeah, it goes unscrupulous, thoroughly unscrupulous, right?
True.
Yeah. Now the first thing sounds like Crowley's Gnostic Mass or something.
Right.
With the inverted. the inverted Eucharist. And the books are interesting because the idea of the book is interesting because, of course, we are thinking about the history of the printed Bible in this, and this ends up being the exact opposite. But it's also says something about some of the motifs in the movie, which is like, the mutability of the book itself. I mean, the fact that the book in the Arturo Perez Reverte book and the book, I mean, there's a meta level to this, that the book survives burning. It's interesting because we just did Beowulf, and there's one copy of Beowulf that exists. Some of these monks saved, for instance, Sappho's poems are fragments because they were literally burned pieces of paper. Some of the copies of Aristotle and Plato, I mean, they were burned. And so the fact that this survived purposeful burning says something about, first of all, what's going to happen to these people, what could happen if they get caught with the book over time, and then eventually what may happen in their final judgment. And the fact that the book is so delicate. I brought out some old copies of books that I have just for reference. Sure. I mean, first of all, Dean Corso is interesting because Corso means street or way, and he's constantly in the streets in the movie. He's constantly going maneuvering through the medieval streets, and he's also going on this path to illumination. But I always thought of Dean Corso as being taken from, there's a poet named Gregory Corso. He was in the Beat generation, sort of level 2. He was in the second generation of the Beat generation. This guy Gregory Corso, who kind of in a way looks like Jonathan Depp's character. And he, of course, lived in Paris and in Europe. He wrote this, one of his poems, his books is called The Happy Birthday of Death, which signifies the birth of postmodernism. And then I've got, just to show you how like flimsy it is, how hard it is to have old books. One of the oldest books I have, I mean, this is from the 1920s, and this is Oswald Spengler's Decline of the West. This is in pretty good condition, but this is still like a modern binding. Mm-hmm. When you look at a book like, this is I think it's 1826 edition of Robert Burns's book of poems. And this is, this is stained on the front, but it's got a kind of Morocco binding right here. You can see with the ridges, right. And it's got, a good leather. It's got, I think it's vellum. So it's still not a very valuable copy because it's so, it's got foxing on the pages and all this stuff. He's, listening to the pages, right. The integrity of whether they are good. But then,
you're making a great point in regard to the quality of books back in the day. Yeah. It wasn't about mass production as it is now, where I'll buy a brand new book and open it, and when I'm halfway through it, because I like to keep, I like to lay my book down, and then it gets creased, and then all of a sudden the glue starts coming out, pages are getting loose. Yeah. Wasn't like that back in the day. It was about craftsmanship and books that would stand the test of time.
Well, look at this. This is one of my oldest also. This is an 1831 copy of a book of Masonic rituals. And look at this. This has obviously been well used by whoever had it. The binding's falling apart. The pages are all foxed, and it's old, but it was meant to stand. I mean, this has all the rituals and the signs in it from all of the various Masonic groups in it.
Wow. BLA, Illuminati confirmed.
Yeah. I got my Illuminati confirmed book there to reference. That's where I learned all the, hand signs or whatever. But I mean, that's one thing that's, again, it's sort of, there's a weird thing that occurs as a result of the fact that we have, information at our fingertips and we can access anything all the time. We've seen that obviously that's given to us and then it's taken away, with cyber polygon. But even the physical book, if you buy a book right now, like for instance off Amazon, you don't know whether, if it's a rare book, it's going to be, oftentimes you'll see at the end of it, on the last page, you'll see, printed on the date that you bought it. It's printed at somebody's house, and they just printed it on a Xerox machine, bound it, and then sent it to you.
Right.
So it's not meant to last for a year.
No.
And so, like you said, books were made with care. They're made with sheepskin. They're made with Morocco leather. They're bound. It was very, very expensive to have books, and those are the books that continue to last in the library. I've got rare books behind me and above me, but those are just over time, books are so susceptible to water, to fire, to sunlight. You can't keep them in sunlight. You have to keep them in special air conditioned boxes like Boris Balkan does, underground, like you're keeping wine or something. It's very, very delicate. And that sort of, in one way, mirrors the process of like the delicacy of how they're going about this Illuminate confirmed pathway that they're going down, this left-hand pathway. It's not for everybody, and not everybody can afford it.
Right. So because obviously it's an inversion of scripture itself, the Bible, where the Bible's translated in every language. And it is in all types of versions, some highly well done, as you've said, with the binding, something to stand the test of time, others not so much. But it doesn't have to do with a limited amount of access to particular knowledge. Well, this one, where there's only 3 in the world, right? So, but at the same time, during the ritual towards the end, the Lena Tefler, she's literally saying that I devote my body and soul to you, the Lord of the Word. And this is an inversion again of Christ, an inversion of Pentecost, an inversion of the way that we understand Scripture, because we don't worship a book, even though people would like to say that we do. So, wanted to make that point. And
there's also one more point at the end, which is when Boris Balkan is about to do the ritual and encircle himself in fire and flames, and he brings out something that's actually brought out in the movie The Witch in 2015, which is and there are sort of elements of revelation in this, which is that he says blot out his name from the book of life and write his name in the black book of death.
Yes,
and that pretty much sums up the whole thing. The Bible is the book, and it's God breathes. The Luciferian book seems to be like people choke.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
Right. Choking on water, Fergus. Right. And then Mr. Tefler, he hangs himself.
That's right. Death by water and death by fire. Right. So
no, that's a great point. And somebody asked a question that I think is very interesting. I had one that, because I got, a list of points regarding symbolism, major themes, as I always do, wrote all those down. But first one, this doesn't, I know Roman Polanski's history and everything that you mentioned at the opening of the stream here, but this book or this movie is not exactly endearing to go on this journey. It's not, it doesn't, everybody's dying associated with it besides Corso and the girl with green eyes, who that's leading into my second question. But what do you think the point of Roman Polanski is doing this? Is just to expose that this exists? Or, I mean, what is the ultimate agenda of the film itself?
Well, I don't think the point is to show that people will have, that they will have some sort of, like, they won't live forever as, demons conquering over people or whatever they're supposed to get from this. It's the fact that it draws you in through the nature of the movie and of the book it's based on, is that we take the eyes of the protagonist. We go into this thing with sort of, we don't know anything about this, right? When we watch it, we're kind of like Corso. We're like, we don't know anything about the business aspect, who he's going to deal with, and everything is illuminating to us. Like we're coming across, we're going through 9 different gates. The movie starts with 9 gates, and like we're going on this path, and everything sort of opens up to us that we see. And what we learn is that because the people they're not rich and famous like we usually see people. These are elite people, and it is intriguing.
Yes,
it's intriguing that there are people.
Great film.
Yeah,
even after today's review, it's worth watching.
Yeah, there are people that live life, and it's like they don't even need they aren't even privy to like the things that we go through every day. They are already ensconced in this sort of luxury, but that they are intellectually curious and they're spiritually curious, but in the wrong sense. And so I think the point of it is to show that there are people that are different from us. And anytime we see that, it's the same sort of thing that we get when we read a Shakespearean tragedy or anything about an epic hero. We don't really have a lot in common with a lot of these people. We're not like Beowulf. We can't just hear about something wrong and get up and leave the country and go fix it. We're not We're not heroes like that, but it's the archetypal sense of what it stands for in us that we have in our daily lives, and that also that stands for Christ. You know, that we can find justice and peace and grace and virtue in the person of Christ. But this is like that people can be a part, you know, it's showing that people can be a part of, or at least be aware of something that they'll never be a part of. And that also shows that, by definition, sort of that Polanski himself, by all like allegations and everything we get from his body of work, like that he is part of this thing.
Right.
And that it's showing us that we're part of it, but we'll never be part of it. But you can try to be part of it, which gives them power.
Right.
It gives them a sort of power to do this. And in the end, look at what happens with Corso. He's like Bill Hartford in Eyes Wide Shut. He's not one of them. And he thinks that he's sort of going on this journey and that he's bigger than he is. And then we find out sort of the opposite. In Eyes Wide Shut, the end of it, we find that Tom Cruise's character thinks that he was at the top of some sort of echelon, but he's actually way below the elites, but there's somebody way above him. In this, Corso actually achieves the thing that he didn't even know he was looking for. And I mean, it's weird because it's attractive. It's like he's like a kind of bohemian character. He looks cool. He's able to like break the rules and do things, and we don't know what he's getting into yet. But I think that's the point. I think that the point is that, you know, sort of revelation in the method, I suppose, is how you would sum it up.
That's what I took it as. Certainly is not something that would be incredibly tempting for somebody to follow, like luring somebody, like some of the more propagandist films that are kind of luring people into a particular direction. But, you know, one of the what was, I just lost my thought. There was something I was going to riff on what you just said. Anyway, it'll come back to me. I had another question for you anyways, and that had to do with the girl with green eyes. Shout out to Bon for becoming a COTEL crew member. He said the big question in the movie is who or what is the girl with green eyes? And my take was that she was actually, I take it that she's part of the Coven of the Silver Serpent, and she is the whore of Babylon. And really, she was the one engineering the whole time, where it looks like she's working for Boris Balkan. I kind of took it as that she's the one that's kind of in charge of the whole thing. Because at the end, it's through her sexual ritual with Dean Corso, Johnny Depp at the end, which then brings him into the ninth circle, finally opening the gates of hell to him so that he could have this satanic enlightenment. But she seems to be the one that's kind of pulling strings. But what's your take on who the girl with the green eyes is?
Yeah, I think she's at once a sort of form of psychopomp. You know, she becomes his kind of guardian angel, taking him through this, but also leading him on. But it's clear that her face is in the engraving as the Whore of Babylon, but she also represents one of the persons of the devil. I think she is Lucifer in the movie. You can see that with when they're having the sex magic ritual in front of the burning castle near the end of the film. You look at her and she changes shape. There's flames behind her. She changes shape. Green eyes. I mean, I don't know about whether Satan himself is described as having green eyes, but I've seen green continuously through all of these books that I've covered. Green is always not just green in the sense of envy, but it's green in this sort of emerald, this weird emerald thing that this, like in Dracula with the emerald vapor that glows, or even in the Great Gatsby, you know, it's the green light across
the Wizard of Oz
bay.
too.
The Wizard of Oz, you know, in the Emerald City. And it's like the light it's some sort of demonic light that he takes on. You know, Satan being described
within Orthodoxy,
like
green is symbolic of the Holy Spirit. So whenever we have Pentecost or something, all the vestments are in green, the church is in green. And for us, the Holy Spirit is present with us right now. And I kind of take that as Satan inverting that symbol to demonstrate his presence in a way. Maybe that's going a bit too far, but I was trying to connect along with you why green is so prevalent in some of these films that we've covered dealing with occultism, and the fact that in the Orthodox Church, green is a symbol or a color that's associated with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and she becomes she's androgyne. She becomes she's a female character, but like with a lot of demonic literature that we read, that demons switch their sex when they become human. So it's almost like she's female, but then we see her in a male. We clearly see her with a male face. It looks, I mean, there's one frame in the movie where it looks as close to what you would probably see Lucifer as in a film as any film. You know, it's clearly her face, and she looks like a Lucifer before his fall or something, you know, but in flames. And then she leads him on into the castle where he's going to walk in of his own accord. It's his own will that he walks in. She doesn't make him walk in. And I think that it also shows that the people that she is guarding him against are the people that are useful idiots and dupes in the employ of Satan. It shows that Boris Balkan, you know, you would think that people full of their pride would be the great servants of Satan, but it actually just it mimics the very fall of Satan, right? That they're full of pride, they're full of hubris.
It's always self-destructive.
And it's self-destructive, and it becomes that they are just useful as slaves for Satan. Which is
I remember what the point I was going to make when you were riffing earlier, and that was that Satan doesn't demand faith. Right. So one of the proclamations for our Christian faith is that we have faith in Jesus Christ. Right. We have to put our faith in something that we can't see. But when we watch this movie with Dean Corso, who eventually becomes the one who's able to enter to the ninth gate, he throughout the film talks about how he doesn't have faith in Satan, or he doesn't believe. When he's talking to Baroness Kessler about, she asked, well, don't you believe in the devil? And he said, no. Not really, basically paraphrasing. But Satan doesn't demand faith in the same way that Christ does. He just demands actions, right? And so as Dean Corso moves through the film, first he doesn't want to do anything illegal when he's first tasked with this mission to go find the other 2 copies. But by the end of it, he's killed 2 people. He shoots Boris Balkan. He has sex with the whore of Babylon. He has sex with the widow of the man who Balkan got the first copy from. And so you see that he's going on this journey where he's continually compromising himself through action, not through faith, not through proclamations of what he believes, but by what he does. And this, in a way, is what Satan demands of us, is that he doesn't care if you believe in him or not. And as the phrase always goes, the greatest trick the devil's ever pulled is to make people think that he doesn't exist. And so it's not about having faith in Satan. It's about participating and enacting in evil acts. That's the whole point.
The silver serpent woman is particularly vicious, right? The way she turns on him, because I mean, you know, she's a pretty sexy woman, you know. And she, you know, that scene with the black shimmering robes, like in the ceremony towards the end, and that looks like, I mean, I think that's an Our Child Mansion where they filmed that. I think it's the same one where they filmed. What's the show with the English that was so popular on the God, what is it?
Mary Poppins?
yeah, Mary Poppins. Yeah, Mary Poppins. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, before we start reviewing the film, I got a few points that I wanted to cover, and then again, feel free to riff on any of them. Some of the major themes, obviously, the first one is knowledge and power, right? And this is the point of occultism and attaining access to hidden knowledge. Occult just means hidden. Esoteric means secret. And so the pursuit for secret or hidden knowledge is the ultimate theme of this whole journey that Corso is going on, and why at the end he actually becomes the thing that Boris Balkan is trying to become, because he wants to know more. He wants to put the puzzle pieces together. And so I wrote that one of the film's central themes is the pursuit for forbidden knowledge and the lust of power. Balkan, Corso, and other characters are obsessed with unlocking the secrets of the 9 gates, hoping to obtain supernatural powers through summoning the devil. The film reflects an age-old fascination with esoteric knowledge as a path to transcendent power.
Yeah. No, I got nothing. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Yeah.
Number 2 is obviously good versus evil. The film explores the traditional moral dichotomies with the devil and demonic forces representing ultimate evil. However, it blurs the lines between good and evil, as many characters are morally ambiguous and driven by greed, ambition, and personal gain. The mysterious woman who accompanies Corso acts as a guide, but her true nature remains ambiguous, suggesting a deeper complexity in the battle between light and darkness. And one of the scenes where he's being mugged there in Paris, she kind of comes down and like flies down to him. Again, for me, indicative of her being a witch. And at the very beginning, when we were first introduced to Boris Bulkin, he's giving this lecture in a lecture hall, and she's present. And he's talking about a book that he's going over during this lecture of that this is the first time, I think it's a 15th century book, where we have a definition of witchcraft, which is women who make a covenant and a pact with the devil for the attainment of secret power and knowledge. And so to me, I connected those things together. And like you, I also think that she is Lucifer. She is Satan. And he's inhabiting, again, a beautiful girl who knows where Dean Corso is at all times. You're kind of made to believe that she's working for Boris Bulkin, but that's never actually stated in the film at all, that she is working for him. The only time is after the ceremony, towards the end of it, he says, you've been working for Boris Bulkin this whole time. She goes, that's funny. I thought you were.
Yeah, the Macbethian aspect of this is hard for me to ignore, which is the weird sisters from Macbeth, weird meaning fate. The Coven basically exists in that play to push Macbeth into making his own decisions towards a kind of megalomaniacal destruction of himself, his wife, and his whole kingdom. You know, he rises to the top, of course, into a castle, takes over the monarchy, but destroys it. And there's a line in the play where it says, speak, demand, he'll answer, either from our mouths or from our masters. And that's basically what the witches do in this movie. They're kind of providing these things where they sort of push Corso into making decisions, but like you said, they don't demand faith. It's just that they enact the ritual in life. Right. And it's really crazy how well this movie does this, where the ritual Odyssey that he goes on in the book and in the engravings it's voluminous, and it keeps illuminating onto a further part of the journey where he makes, remember, he ends up in one of the final stages, he ends up in a maze with a blocked off exit. Right. And there's only one exit to the thing. And that's, indicative of the labyrinth of his mind, the labyrinth of the world of people making their way through the psyche and through their own decisions until finally they come to a decision purposefully to make the decision to go seek Lucifer. Right. And
which relates to one of the inscriptions, right? So what we'll see here is this book, the book of the nine gates, the ninth gate. It has, 9 inscriptions, and some of them are drawn by the author, who I forget the name, and then other ones have the initials LCF regarding Lucifer. And so what they're trying to do, what Dean Corso puts together, for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, is that the inscriptions written by Lucifer are subtly different than the ones written by the author who said he wrote it with the devil himself. And so the one in which Lucifer drew of a maze has an opening where it's not blocked off at the end, again leading just to what you said, that you go through this labyrinth, and then eventually the opening door is the end point that brings you to Satan himself.
Yeah, I think one of the most illuminating ones is the silence is golden, right? Which is this, I think this is a Masonic hand sign, but silence is golden, which is again conveys this sense of, one thing that we get whenever angels appear in the Bible is that, oftentimes people will want to bow down and worship the angel, but then the angel tells them, I'm just the angel. But they reveal themselves. They tell the truth. They don't hide who they are. It's not like when Zeus or Odin take on a disguise and they try and trick people into, whether they're loyal to them. And this week we also see that, that she plays this demonic witch character plays kind of word games, but she's never really asked who she is until she, kind of leads him on the way. But that they're in disguise. They're in disguise throughout the thing, but that silence is one of the key, one of the key elements in terms of the ritual, in terms of the Odyssey. That all of this sort of relies on a conspiracy of silence, I suppose.
Right. Well, and to me, again, that's the inversion of the proclamation of the gospel, right? Evangelizing and spreading the word, where this satanic Luciferian spirituality is about hoarding and hiding the truth. So silence is golden in the sense of that you don't share the secrets. These are reserved for certain peoples.
Yeah.
And then, okay, the next point I had was number 3 is duality and deception. The film weaves symbols of duality from the concept of the book having a real and counterfeit versions to the nature of the characters who often hide their true intentions. Deception is a major theme as everyone is trying to deceive one another in their quest for power. Again, indicative of the father of lies, Satan himself, which is a deceiver. And so I pointed out that I felt that was a major theme of the movie, is that all the characters, other than kind of who's the I forget the gentleman's name that owns the bookstore at the beginning, that's friends with Dean Corso, who ends up getting killed for hiding the book. He seems to be a genuine character, but the vast majority of all the main characters in the film are very deceptive. Just like we talked about with the girl with the green eyes, you don't know who exactly they are, what exactly they want. Boris Balkan is very ambiguous in certain things, and it turns out he's, at the end, the whole thing was about him gaining divine powers of Satan.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about Bernie. His friend Bernie.
Bernie. That's it.
Yeah, Bernie.
Did you just look at it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but he's played by James Russo.
Bernie, that's it. Yeah, Bernie Ornstein. That's who it is. James Russo. Yeah, he seems like a genuine character. He's the only one that didn't seem deceptive, right? Because he's the one that calls Corso out when he comes back with the Don Quixote books, calling him out as a deceiver and a scoundrel, and how he's always getting his piece. And and then he's like wanting to sell the books to Bernie's Swiss purchaser client. And he's like, well, give me 20%. He's like, no. Well, give me 15%. No. And so I don't know. It could be I was reading too much into it, but it seemed like Bernie was one of the genuine characters. But of course, he dies just trying to help out Dean Corso and holding the book for him.
He's also underground. The bookstore itself is underground.
That's true.
You see the feet walking by, and the whole system sort of relies on an underground. I mean, how do you even get to know this network of buyers with this stuff? My cousin, it was a rare book dealer, and so he would sort of know these people. But now with the proliferation of the internet, this is still outside the internet. This is like person to person people that have to look at Balkan's library, right? In his skyscraper. With a 666 is the entry code.
Right. Well, you mentioned the internet, and one of the points that I wrote down was the information age, right? So we're in the information age through technology, and clearly Luciferianism is in a way is about particular secret information. And Baroness Kessler makes a point when she says about how she's dedicating her life to Satan and that her library is dedicated to him. And Corso makes a point that you realize 300 years ago, you would have been hanged for that. And she goes, well, I wouldn't have said it 300 years ago. And insinuating that in 1999, moving into the 21st century, now you can be open about your devotion towards Satan and the devil himself, where before you couldn't have. And so I did a whole stream on Hermes being the god of the information age and how we live in the Hermetic time. And I think that goes hand in hand, in the sense that the sort of erosion of our Christian morality and our Christian culture is tied with the prevalence of the information age that we live in, and people sort of living in a maze of words, concepts, and information symbols, right? And people are being pulled emotionally and through their passions to enact. It doesn't matter what they believe, but to enact the sinful things that tie them closer to Satan himself.
Yeah, that Polanski took the opportunity to do this because it has a 999, which is the inversion of the 666, right? With the 1666 burning at the stake. So, he just took the opportunity to do this. Right. This is the perfect year. There's no other great year. There was 1966 with Anton LaVey. He's too late for that. So let's do 1999 before the walking into the Stargate of the new millennium, I suppose. So.
Right. So last one I have is the occult and esotericism. Central to the story is the connection between ancient manuscripts, occult symbols, and rituals. The movie portrays historical traditions related to occultism, secret societies, and the forbidden pursuit of knowledge through dark supernatural means. Now, in regards to symbolism, I had 3 main points of symbolism. The first one's the 9 gates. The title refers to the idea that the book, The 9 Gates, contains engravings, each of which represents a step toward the opening of the gates to hell and achieving satanic enlightenment. These gates symbolize various stages of personal and metaphysical transformation, alluding to the Faustian myth, where an individual bargains with the devil for knowledge and power. The second one, in regards to symbolism, I have is the serpent and the pentagram. Classic occult symbols like the serpent and the pentagram frequently appear in the film, reinforcing the themes of satanic rituals and the quest for forbidden knowledge. The serpent represents temptation, echoing the biblical story of the fall, while the pentagram, a common symbol in esoteric traditions, is tied to both protection and invocation of demonic forces. And my third point was books as power. Books in this film are more than just objects. They are depicted as repositories of ancient wisdom, capable of unlocking immense power. This theme ties into historical anxieties about secret knowledge contained in grimoires, magical texts, and the ways in which such knowledge can corrupt or elevate its seeker. And then for the historical context, I had 3 points in regards to how this film connects to real life things, some of which some of the people in the chat may already be familiar with. Grimoires throughout history, grimoires have been perceived as gateways to hidden knowledge filled with spells, summoning rituals, and instructions for communicating with spirits. The 9 Gates is a fictional grimoire, and it echoes real books like the Malleus Maleficarum and the Grand Grimoire, which were associated with witchcraft and demonic pacts. Number 2, demonology and witch hunts. The obsession with demonic power has historical roots in witch hunts of the late medieval period, where individuals were accused of making pacts with the devil. This historical context adds gravity to the film's exploration of how the pursuit of forbidden knowledge can become very dangerous and have deleterious consequences. And then number 3, alchemical and occult movements. During the Renaissance, figures like Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa and Paracelsus explored the boundaries between science and magic. At one point in the film, when they're doing the satanic ritual, they talk about how their lord, Satan, is able to see through the mirror of science, which I thought was really interesting because it's insinuating. Obviously, we just lived through the coup where, you know, the science, we see scientism as a sort of secular religion in and of itself, where it doesn't require belief, but people certainly are putting their belief and faith in something that they can't see or touch, even though they don't think they are. And so the alchemical and occult movements throughout history, again, Paracelsus and Agrippa, explored these boundaries between science and magic, trying to harness mystical forces for human benefit. The idea of acquiring divine or demonic powers became associated with personal transformation and enlightenment, themes that are mirrored throughout the film.
Yeah, there's another thing that's mirrored in this, which is the books that he goes after. You know, one of which is mentioned in this is Don Quixote. You know, and it almost seems like he's on a quixotic journey where he's, you know, I guess he's tilting at windmills, like he's not going to find. But that ends up being what all the other characters are doing. You know, they sort of find themselves not LARPing. None of the characters are really LARPing, except for the one when they show the ritual scene. But that the characters are kind of they keep being frustrated in their pursuits. I mean, Boris Balkan is ultimately frustrated in his pursuit,
right?
But that the books that they show in the books and movies are always symbolic of whatever the journey is, or something about the setting or the inner state of the characters. And what's interesting about this is that the Corso character seems to have no real inner state. I mean, he seems to be an empty shell on the inside, just simply trying to, you know, he's filling himself up with money.
Well, and alcohol, right? So he drinks in about every scene in the movie.
He does. And he continuously tries to smoke a cigarette, and he keeps getting frustrated.
I struggle with that.
Yeah. But that, you know, even the money, it's like, you know, well, tack on another 0 to that,
right?
You know, and it'll be fine. But that it's just wild how, like, there's the reason he uses a Mont Blanc pen throughout the thing is because we see him as a kind of Agatha Christie, like he's an Agatha Christie character trying to solve a murder mystery in this thing,
right.
But he ends up being a part in it. And that should tell us from the beginning, the audience or the reader, that things aren't going to be what they seem. And whenever he hides things, it's the purpose of the whole journey itself is to be hidden. Everything remains hidden. So there are continuously going to be characters who are trying to hide themselves from him or hide the nature of the journey from him until it turns out that he is the one going on the journey, which we should have figured from the beginning.
Well, you made a point about money, and I wrote down the quote that Vulcan states to Corso right when he first commissions him for it. He says, "Nothing is more trustworthy than a man whose loyalty can be bought for hard cash."
Yeah, and he's right. And who takes that sort of tactic? The CIA, for one. The money is always
organization for sure.
Yeah, the money is always the first thing that they appeal to. Patriotism second, and then finally compromise. So that seems to be indicative of that very thing.
Well, before we start clicking through the video, as we always do, free shill whatever you have, how people can support you, what you got going on. Take it away.
Yeah, so I just did you guys, hopefully you saw the stream that I did with Jamie talking about Prince Harry over on her channel, Jamie Henshaw. That one we had a lot of fun with that, and we're going to be going over that again on Boiler Room in what's today, Tuesday, in 2 nights on Boiler Room Alternate Current Radio. Check them out. You can also check them out on the Crumble channel. I'm not sure it'll be up on YouTube, but Alternate Current Radio with Hesher. I'll be there with Jamie talking about, again, Prince Harry's autobiography, Spare. I've been doing a bunch of Boiler Rooms. Just did Jason Burmis on Friday. You can always
dude, I saw that. Yeah, congrats, man.
Yeah, that was a good one. Over there on TNT, and if you want to join, if you want to grab a membership, you want to sponsor a stream, you can do that. I've got a bunch of stuff lined up that we're going to get to. Mainly, I'm going to be focusing coming up on spooky season. I'll be doing a couple of spooky season films, some new films that have just come out, and I'm going to be getting back into Shakespeare. And then I've got a analysis of this book called The Double, which is what the Jake Gyllenhaal movie Enemy is based on. It's a book by it's a Spanish language book, but I've got it in translation, so I'll be doing that. So yeah.
Oh, nice, very nice. And for me to do some quick housekeeping, you can always support my work. One of the best things you can do is go to my website and become a website member. Again, we have 3 different types of memberships. We have a private think tank group that meets twice every month, a fitness membership that meets the first Monday of every month, and then I have a whole video library of topics that maybe aren't TOS appropriate for YouTube. For just $5 a month, you get full access to that entire video library. Also, if anybody's interested in setting up a one-on-one session where we can hop into a Zoom meeting and discuss any topic your heart's desire, be it Orthodox theology, be it Western esoteric traditions, philosophy, whatever is on your mind, we can do that with that link right there. And also a major thank you to Aaron today for sponsoring today's stream. Aaron, God bless you, brother. And if you also have a stream that you would like to sponsor or a movie review, you can purchase here, and you can support me and BLA if you want us to do that. If not, I have a sponsored stream, for example, this Thursday, going over the history of Serbia and the Serbian Orthodox Church. Also, you could get some merch over at the website. Would always appreciate that. And I am also working with a non-for-profit called the eschatonvigil.org, and you can join that if you want to get access to many of the prophecies regarding the end times, the Antichrist, and the Great War, and also the golden age of the Orthodox Church. All this stuff is being translated into English for the very first time. And that is what we're doing over on the Eschaton Vigil. So you can support and join over there as well. And then the last thing is, if you are in the market for any Orthodox items, go check out orthodoxdepot.com. Orthodoxdepot.com, use promo code COTEL. If you're looking for icons, prayer robes, incense lamps, whatever it may be, it's a good Orthodox company right here in the Midwest, United States. And you can also help me out. So check out orthodoxdepot.com, use promo code COTEL. Okay. So any final comments before we start clicking through the film?
Yeah, just that, people are especially hesitant to watch movies these days, and I can understand that. I totally understand that. But I think this is not advice. I just think it is really important to keep up with film and literature, and to keep yourself abreast of art. We should look at these things with discernment, and so it's important to do that. It's sort of this can really strengthen your your views, your spiritual views, if you like. And I think it's important to do that. There's not much being made. I'll also say that this is totally random, but I'll say this because it's the total opposite of this film. I think it's important also to go back and rewatch movies that you watched in your youth, because a lot of times we forget about what those movies actually had. And just my example of this, to be brief, is I rewatched the movie Crocodile Dundee the other night, which sounds like this is totally random, but I could not believe how wholesome the movie was and how amazing it is. It's really a beautiful movie. I haven't seen that
since I was a kid.
Yeah, and it's really, it was so successful, and it's really a beautiful movie. There's a lot in there that really exemplifies all the sort of things that we look for in film now. It seems very simplistic, but the scene at the end where she realizes that she loves him and she's running to find him, which has now become a trope in romantic comedies, but she's running to tell him that she loves him, is really beautiful. It's a really great film. So go back and watch those movies from your youth, because they can be life affirming.
Absolutely. Great point. All right. So this movie is a little over 2 hours, and it opens up here. So obviously we see Lionsgate, and it opens up. We're sitting in this library with this gentleman right here, Mr. Telfer. And we're not exactly sure what he's doing. He's sort of writing a letter here. We can already notice that something is missing in the bookshelf up here to the right, which you're first watching this movie, you're not going to pick up on that at all. And so he's writing some type of letter, which we never actually are told the full extent of what he's writing. I assume it's probably for his wife. And the speculation in the movie is that he has figured out, which again, we don't know yet in the film, this is the opening scene, that his wife, a much younger, beautiful woman, is actually part of the Coven of the Silver Serpent. And she participates in these massive satanic orgies in Europe. And she comes from an elite aristocratic family that sort of lost its wealth. And so she married this man to reclaim that wealth, essentially. And her satanic endeavors, it seems to be, has driven this man to commit suicide.
Yeah, first of all, that's a great library. That's a great study. But this is the study of a man who is obviously in scarlet at the beginning. Also looks to be, his monogram shoes. He casually puts up a very thin looking noose on the lampshade. On the chandelier at the top, with his little piano footstool right there. Loses his left foot. His left slipper there. So we're going to be going into the left-hand path. And also, just the framing of it, we're kind of hazy. It almost looks like Rococo or something.
Even when they go back later, it's super hazy.
Yeah, and the desk itself, by the way, this is a typical writing desk, but it is interesting in terms of filmmaking symbolism, that he's writing at the desk, but it also can occur to us that it's a double, that it's also our desk. There's a place reserved for us to sit down at the desk and read and write. And so that invites us into learning what he's just written, which we kind of think is his unaliving letter. But even the print that the movie, the credits are printed in a kind of old 16th century writing style. And so we're going to be going into something literary, but also lethal.
Right. So next scene, so we see that he kills himself, and then it kind of moves through the library here. We're looking at books, and then all of a sudden we have a little bit more credits here, goes through some more doors.
Yeah, we go through the 9 gates.
Yeah, and then we have the light, right? And then boom, we're in New York City.
There we go.
And now we're introduced to Mr. Corso, Dean Corso. This is Johnny Depp's character, and he is analyzing the book collection of this old man sitting in the wheelchair, who apparently is mute and yet can still hear and perceive, because he's quite angry at what he's hearing Dean Corso tell his children about the worth of these books, and he's getting the Don Quixote for a much reduced price because they don't know exactly what they're looking at. And at the same time, he's over inflating the value of their library so that the next book collector who comes in is going to look like he's trying to undermine them, even though he may be actually giving them a pretty good price for the value of what it's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a consultant for books. I can give you the value. Maybe I can do this one for you. I could, I could hold on to this one for, let's say, $400. It's like a $400,000 book.
Yeah, it's around $600,000. My copy here has the subtitles throughout the whole film. And
he's also noticed that all the exterior shots are they're all either exterior shots from stock shots from New York, or they can't film the movie in America. This is all filmed in Europe. So it looks like New York, but we're filming all this in Europe.
Right.
Polanski can't,
as you said, because
he can't come to America.
US.
Yeah, he can't set foot here.
So he says, "Oh, this volume, this is a Don Quixote 4-volume collection," and he's like, "I could. How much were you thinking? I can't probably stop on. Oh, there it is, 4,000. No more than 4,200." And you see the old man, his face is going crazy because he knows that that's probably the most valuable books that he has in his entire library.
He also has the same face as Baroness Kessler has when she passes away later. The sort of stroke mouth and one eye closed.
And so we're there. It is. There's your line.
Yeah. It's a black and white checkerboard floor thrown in.
And so we're introduced to Dean Corso. He kind of lifts these books from these people for a cheap price, and he's going over to his friend Bernie's Rare Books to show him what he just copped.
I think this is supposed to be a take on Bauman's Rare Books. If you've ever been in there, it's the sort of the standard, best rare bookstore that's in New York and international cities. It's a great bookstore.
And he says, "You're a double dealing, money grabbing bastard."
Mm-hmm.
So we already see that Corso is not exactly the most moral, upright individual, but at the same time, he's not killing anybody, which eventually we'll see this arc of the character. He will.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. Fantastic. So he's looking at, again, the Don Quixote.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're introduced to Boris Balkan. And so they're going into Balkan Press. So he owns a book publishing company and has this ginormous tower in New York City. And Dean is going in here for a lecture. He's presenting a lecture on demons and medieval literature by Boris Balkan, PhD. And we can kind of already see him through here. And he just goes in the back and kind of just falls asleep. And here we're introduced to the green-eyed woman who I think both of us suspect this is Satan, and this is Lucifer. This is the witch who's given herself body and soul over to the evil one. Yeah. And she's sitting in the back. Everybody else has notes. They're listening intently. And she's very aware of Dean Corso here. And he ends up falling asleep during the lecture.
That's Polanski's wife, by the way.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. They're still married. It's Emmanuel Senior. Yeah.
I did not know that. I didn't put that together.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's over, and Boris Balkan comes in and says, basically just mocking him for sleeping during the lecture, and then takes him up to his private collection.
And look at the demonic Pazuzu statues on either side of him when he's giving his lecture.
There. Oh, let's see there we go.
Yeah.
And these same statues, when Lena Telfer at her chateau in France also has very similar statues.
Even the layout, like with the stones in the background, kind of looks almost like the building of a ninth gate. It almost looks like a little doorway right there with his podium, right, which is like almost a blood altar.
Yeah, it kind of does.
And it's funny that he's woken up by Balkan the way he is. Balkan, of course, has his red publishing industry CEO Titan Warby Parker's on or whatever. Savile red pinstripe suit.
And they go up to his private collection and bragging about this is the greatest collection in the world dedicated to his favorite protagonist, the devil. And talks about how they're kept at a certain temperature, preserving them for as long as possible. This is my private collection. You're privileged, Mr. Corso.
And right there in the background, that's the estate. That's the estate of that they're gonna. That's
right.
Foreshadowing for the end. That's the actual castle.
That's the where Vulcan's actually going to die, and where Corso is going to have fornicate with the whore of Babylon. And this photo right here is the front of a postcard given to Baroness Kessler, which he's eventually going to put together. So yeah, great call there, stopping on that image. And so here he begins to tell him that he needs him for something, and he hands him the Book of the Ninth Gate, and he starts analyzing it and sees that it's a genuine copy. But Boris tells him, he says, yes, only 3 copies survived, but I need you to check the other 2 copies. And he said, well, it looks genuine to me. And so here we're kind of introduced to the engraved images here, the engravings. Silence is golden. And writes him a check here for, we don't know how much money, but tells him to put another 0 at the end of it if he has any troubles.
I mean, this is Luciferian right here, like looking out over the city like that, with his reflection right there staring back at him, and with the almost a triple reflection of the Chateau de Puivert, which is the castle where he dies, in that postcard.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking, this is real Luciferian, looking out over the city, looking down like he is.
Right. And as you guys can follow these captions, he's explaining what the book means. And he said, they're reputed to conjure up the Prince of Darkness in person. I mean, do you believe in the supernatural? Every page, every engraving, the binding, everything. That's to get you started. Spend what you need.
He's a gigantic man, Frank Langella. Frank Langella also played, he played the Creeper in Lolita. I think in the Kubrick version.
Oh,
there's a weird tie-in with Frank Langella in this. Yeah.
So, Corso goes back to his little apartment here, and again drinking, as he was even in the first opening scene where he's analyzing the book collection of that other person. And he starts looking through the book. I thought it's interesting that he's smoking cigarettes over such a rare book. There's only 3 in the world. I can't imagine a true book collector smoking right over it where your ashes fall down and burn it.
Oh, no, that's exactly what they do.
Really?
Yeah, that's exactly what they do.
They're not afraid of burning the pages?
No, not at all. And also the he's smoking Lucky Strikes, by the way. Lucky Strike Factory right here where I am. Yeah. No, he walks in and he gets his TV dinner and he throws it in the microwave, like exactly like I do when I get home. Just throw this trash in the microwave to eat it.
And so looking at the Silence is Golden, now he's introduced to Lena Tefler, right? This is the wife of the man who kills himself in the opening scene. We don't know much about her or her involvement, and he's just asking her if she even knows about the book because her husband has recently sold it to Boris Balkan. And she acts like, oh no, I know it was one of my husband's books. It was one of his favorites, and he sold it, you say. How strange. This was one of his most treasured possessions. He never mentioned the sale to you. Who bought it? A private collector basically tells her, I can't tell you who it is. You're a book detective.
Look at her fine pre-Chippendale furniture in there. She had the chrysanthemums out. This is a sexy woman. By the way, she's doing exactly. Oh my God, I just watched a movie where I just called this. She does exactly what every woman does in a movie where they're wearing pants, which is stick her hands in her pants and walk around with her hands in her pockets. Every single movie. And notice this next time you watch a movie where a woman's wearing this kind of outfit, like right there, she'll walk around with her hands in her pockets. They don't know what to do.
And so she kind of shows where he hanged himself, and then he gets in a car and ends up.
Well, I'm sorry, I got to interrupt. One more thing. That house right there that they use for this is the same house that they use in the movie The Ghost Rider. Roman Polanski's The Ghost Rider, which is another great film. People should watch that film too. It's another book, it's got writer in the title. It's a book driven narrative, but that one is about a guy who's ghost writing for a guy who used to be the prime minister, and he's about to face war crimes charges, and there's some shenanigans that go on. But Tom Wilkinson is a CIA guy. It's set in the Northeast, but that's the house that they use.
Kyle Richards asking, didn't she play Carrie? I have no idea.
No, that was Sissy Spacek. Sissy Spacek is from Virginia. That's why I know that. That's Lena Olin. She was in Game of Thrones. Very, very sexy woman. I'm just going to say that one more time.
So now he goes to the local library and is trying to do a little bit of research on the book and its context and some of the meanings. And he pulls the, don't know if I'll be able to stop, but there's the green-eyed girl on the other side of the bookshelf. And then he begins to try to look for her. And it's like she just disappeared out of thin air.
Indicating that those are the eyes you're going to see when you look into the book itself, right? That when you look into the book, that's the face you're going to see.
Good. Yeah. Great point there. So he starts, again, doing more research, looking at encyclopedias and such. And now he's looking at the engraving of the Whore of Babylon, right? This woman sitting atop the beast with the burning castle in the back. But this
clearly is her face.
Right. Yeah, but this is not the original copy. This is a forgery, which we'll find out towards the end of the film, where the brothers in Portugal actually they took out the original engraving, which is he's going to find out at the end of the film after he fornicates with the Whore of Babylon that he participated in the last ritual. So anyways, he looks at this, and then what happens next is he takes his glasses off, and lo and behold, there she is, staring down at him again. But then when he goes to put his glasses on,
and she was standing behind a gate. She's standing behind a gateway.
Oh, that's another good point there. And so now he's in the rain, going back home. And when he gets home, he sees that somebody has already trashed his apartment looking for the book. So he takes it to Bernie, shows Bernie what it is. Lamented Andrew Telfer, that's the man that hung himself in the beginning, and asks him to hold the book because weird things are happening and he's just not sure about anybody, including Boris Balkan. And just in case somebody tries to steal it, just ask him to hold on to it for him. So as a good friend does, he does just that.
And you notice that she's watching behind him. His devil over his left shoulder is watching behind him because you can see the feet in the background.
Right, right here. And she's putting out a cigarette that somebody else was standing there. They dropped the cigarette, and then there she is. And you can see her socks. So now he's at home, long day. And lo and behold, Liana Tefler is outside wanting to speak with him. So he invites her in. I've come to talk business, she said. Pulls out one of her, looks like a clover cigarette.
Smoking cloves there. Yeah. Nasty. But I would expect her to smoke those, yeah.
And basically, he asks, I have a great deal of money. I'm very happy for you, he says, and asks, could I throw in a bonus? And he said, last time there was an automatic weapon in a woman's skirt. And then she lifts her skirt and shows that she's in lingerie underneath her coat, obviously insinuating that she's going to sleep with him and she will pay him all types of money for the book. And so immediately intrigued and led by his passions, he says, would you like a drink? He goes and pours some whiskey, and she begins taking his pants off, kissing him. And we see that they make love. And while they're done, she then opens up his bag to look for the book, which, of course, Bernie has the book.
And she really switches character here.
Yeah. So she said, okay, where is it? And he's like, well, I told you I can't sell it to you. And so she starts going crazy, scratches
him like a cat, bites him.
And then right here, she hits him over the head with the whiskey bottle that he just poured. And so he wakes up, head bleeding, probably a bad headache. And he's calling Bernie because this was a weird incident. He just gave Bernie the book and Bernie's not answering, which is strange. So he decides to go to Bernie's Rare Books to talk to Bernie. And upon entering in there, he sees that Bernie has been killed and he's hung in a symbolic fashion of
the Hanged Man.
If anybody's familiar with tarot cards, this is the card of the Hanged Man. And this is also depicted in one of the engravings within the book.
Yeah.
So he then knows the secret hiding spot at the bookstore, and his book was still there. So he takes it, pretty disheveled, upset, I'm sure, and then tells the Indian driver here, pull over, I need to use the phone booth, and calls Boris Balkan here and lets him know what just happened. And he said, basically, I'm out. This is getting weird. And Boris says, well, just put another 0 at the end of your check. Everything will be taken care of.
The colors here are important too. I mean, you see that red-haired woman in the background right there. You saw the red turban of the Sikh driver. There's almost like red blood spattered on the phone booth there. There used to be such a thing called phone booths.
Yeah. It's such a simpler time. So now he's on the plane to Portugal because the other 2 copies of the Ninth Gate is in Portugal and France. So he is on his way to Portugal, and now he's looking at the engraving of the Hanged Man, of which his friend Bernie was just killed in similar fashion. And so he goes into these brothers who are rare book dealers as well, and started asking them about the book. And this book used to be the Nine Gates used to be their copy. And so he starts asking them questions and finds out that they're the ones that actually sold it to Lena Telfer. So it's not Mr. Telfer who wanted the book, the man who hung himself. It was his wife who purchased the book, adamant about purchasing the book, and gave them such a great price that they couldn't turn it down.
They also, balk at the name of Balkan. I mean, their sort of ears perk up right when they hear Balkan's name. It's a close network. These guys are Gemini twins. They finish each other's sentences. They again are also smoking over the books.
Yeah,
wiping ash over the books. And the location of their bookstore is down the Corso, and it looks exactly like the engraving that he was just looking at. I mean, we saw the disembodied hand of the knight coming out of nowhere in the gate in the engraving, coming out of the wall with a knight's glove on, holding a sword, and we see the hangman on the cracked wall. So what we're seeing is that his physical journey is embodying the same journey through the 9 gates that he's reading about in the book. Right. And these guys are going to appear later in the engravings.
Yeah, so they're telling him that Mr. Telfer didn't seem to be particularly interested. It was his wife. And then he's asking if it's a potential forgery, although it looks genuine. And they're telling him, no, it's not a forgery. It'd be impossible to make a forgery. It'd be too difficult. Now, meanwhile, they actually did make a forgery of 2 pages because again, as we talked about, the Whore of Babylon engraving, they have the original one, which actually is sitting on top of this bookshelf right here.
Yeah.
So they're aware of what you would have to do to make a forgery. And 2 pages within the book is a forgery by them, which you find out at the very, very end of the movie.
So they're talking about how impossible it is to make a forgery, but they themselves are forgers, and they also are a forgery. These guys are masquerading as, I guess they're masquerading as human beings, but they later appear as kind of psychopomp Gemini twins in the engravings themselves, almost like they're not, are they human or not? Or are they in their demonic spirits in human form? And part of this, again, is like finding out the people who are the forgeries, not just the pages. It's also impossible to make forgeries for these books because they have to be printed on the same type of paper material or vellum or whatever they get. And there's so little of that material. They have to use the same ink, the same paper, and it's almost impossible to find because it would only be in another book, and you can't wipe away the previous page.
Right. And just want to say again, thank you to JW, threw in $10 and said, do a good job and I'll double it. Thank you very much, JW. Appreciate that.
Yeah, tack another 0 onto there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, tack another 0 onto there. Yeah. JW would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
But if anybody wants to support BLA or BLA's Cash App and PayPal is in the live chat. If you scroll up and he can share those again. Or if you'd like to support my channel, please send in a super chat using Streamlabs, Dono Chat, or here on YouTube, or gift some COTEL Crew memberships. Would greatly appreciate that as well. So, okay, we're introduced to these guys. They, again, reassure him that this is a genuine copy. This is not a forgery. And then they highlight that some of these engravings, they're basically leading him on the path here, that some of these engravings have the initials AT, the gentleman who wrote the book in companionship with Lucifer, and some of them are initialed LCF, which is Lucifer himself. And as soon as Corso leaves, scaffolding begins to fall as if a spirit of death is now following him.
Yeah.
So, and this is, go ahead.
Look at the engraving right there. Look at the guy's face. That's one of the guys.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's
the guy. That's
Those
one
are
of the twins. Yeah.
Yep, you nailed it. Yep, those are the twins right there. And this is the angel of misfortune. So this engraving, I don't know if I'll be able to stop. Right.
It's supposed to be like a perversion of a cherub, right? It's a grown man naked, but with a mustache, and also firing the arrow down. And there's crossing the bridge, crossing the abyss,
right? Crossing the journey of crossing the abyss, and you have to withstand the arrows of misfortune as you cross, which is again what this engraving symbolizing here.
You want to read the 9? There's 9 titles. I want to read them real quick. I got a list of them here.
Yeah, go ahead.
9 gates. There's silence is. I'll just read the English translation. Silence is golden. They open that which is closed. The lost word keeps the secret. Fate is not the same for all. Frustra in vain. I am enriched by death. The disciple surpasses the master. Virtue lies defeated is the 8th gate, and then finally Nunc Scio Tenebris Lux. Now I know that from darkness comes light.
So moving forward here, Corso is now on a train, trying to go to Mr. Fargus, a gentleman who has the 2nd book in Lisbon, Portugal. And so who do we find on the train? None other than the green-eyed gal. And so he says, I've seen you before. And she says, have you? And he implies that she's working for Vulcan. And when he says Vulcan, she goes, Vulcan who? Which, as you move through, she says she's, are you a student? Something like that. And so, what's your name? She said, guess. And he said, green eyes. She said, that'll do. And though, anyways, she says she's riding on the cheap end of the train, and he's going to the section that has the sleepers, so he can.
That's a nice train.
Yeah.
Have you ever ridden on a sleeper train?
Yes, in China.
Oh,
yeah. I actually, I
tell us more. Did you find the launch
20-hour train ride? 20-hour train ride. I went from southern China to Xi'an, and then from Xi'an to Beijing.
Yeah,
I think that one was like 18 hours.
I rode the night train from Austria to Denmark.
Oh,
yeah, and I was in a sleeper car, and it was very bad because I had bought a switchblade in Austria, and I had just given the guy my passport, and I could not close this switchblade. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get off of there. Going to search me with an open switchblade on this train. Finally, I finished that. I figured out how to close it. Oh my God.
I just watched the Murder on the Orient Express, which is it makes me a little bit nostalgic of a sort of upper echelon train rides.
Yeah, Agatha Christie.
So, moving forward here, he makes his way to. Oh, we got to play for a second. Makes his way to Mr. Fargus's estate, knocks on the door, and Corso, oh yes, come in. And he, like BLA said, he's kind of playing the violin.
Yeah.
Pours him a drink of brandy and introduces him to his collection, which much of which he's already gotten rid of. He talked about how his family, they're like nation states that eventually they decline and wither away. And so he shows him his major book collection here, and these are all occult books. And he has the second copy of the 9 Gates.
This is great because this is really showing the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of the collectors of these books. I mean, this guy is living in a dilapidated Poe Byronic estate, like you said, with the books on the floor. He has to, take care of them every day because of the rodents. And he's just sitting in an empty chair playing, as if he's Paganini. And there you go. There's one of the copies of the 9th Gate with the pentagram on the front in black leather.
Right. And his is actually in a little bit better condition than Vulcan's. It doesn't have the black leather is kind of worn away on Vulcan's, which he said that's the only difference between the two, is one of the back cover of the book. But here he says, I'd like to analyze your edition. And Mr. Fargus finds out that he has Telfer's edition, which is now Boris Vulcan's, and he wants to take a look at it. And so he's amazed by some of the print and that there is an S. Let's see if we can stop on it. That was sort of halfway printed, and it was exactly the same in both editions. There it is. So that S right there, he said, you see that? And then he saw that it's the same in both editions, and he said, that's just fantastic in regards to the craftsmanship and the quality here. But this discoloration, this is Vulcan's book right here, this discoloration on the back. So Corso then wants to sit down and analyze the book, and he says, basically tells him, okay. And he sits there, and what he begins to realize is that some of the engravings are different. So the second one that you mentioned, the keys to, what was it? The second engraving you had, you just mentioned it.
Yeah. Let me find it. By the way, his face is that guy. They opened that which is closed. That's his face.
Aha.
That's the guy whose house he's in. That's his face in the engraving. Got a slightly longer beard, but that's his face.
But so if you could see there,
he mimics everybody he comes across is in the engraving. Like these are the stages of the journey. And what the great irony of this, right? The mystery, the puzzle is that they're all forgeries and they're all real. So they're both, right? But he's got to find the mix between the two, which lead to the left-hand path, I suppose, which is the one that Lucifer wrote, even though their engravings are mixed between 3 books. So not one of them, it's not that one of them is true, is an authentic book. It's that they all have elements of forgery and authenticity.
Right. And so again, we'll see that the keys that are initialed by LCF, Lucifer, are in the left hand, as opposed to Vulcan's book, which they're in the right hand. I get a symbolic theme that plays throughout the movie here. So he begins the marking down which engraving is initialed by LCF and which one is not. And then eventually he completes the analyzing of the 2 books, begins to leave. And we see here a beamer that's outside that's getting ready to try to run him over, although it turns right at the end here. It could have smashed him against that tree. It does not. And this is the black man with platinum blonde hair who is working with Lena Telfer and trying to reacquire the book that Corso has right here. And of course, the green-eyed gal comes back and saves the day and sort of chases this guy off.
In other words, it looks like some sort of demon creature, some sort of Mephistophelian character is trying to scare him off of what he's going for, but then a further demon protects him or something.
Right.
For the end of the journey. Yeah.
So now Corso is in his hotel, and of course she's already there waiting for him, which is a bit surprising. And she's reading a book of how to win friends and influence people. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yes.
And so,
was that Carnegie? Who wrote that? Carnegie?
I think so.
Yeah.
And then he's told that he has a phone call. This is Boris Bulking asking him any progress. And he tells him, I'd like to talk to you in my room. So he goes up to the room and tells him about the initials being different on certain engravings. And Vulcan acts like he was not aware of that. This is very interesting news, a new development. And tells him that he needs to see Baroness Kessler's edition. Wakes up early in the morning.
He's always getting night calls, little booty calls from the ladies throughout the movie, isn't he?
He can't say no, that's for sure. He says, what time is it? She's knocking on the door. It's early, but you have to go. And so she gets him to get his stuff together. And they take him back to Fargus, who is now dead and drowned in his little fish pond thing in the center of his front yard. And let's see if we can stop on it. There's Mr. Fargus. He is now dead.
Death by water, followed later by death by fire.
Yep. And so he goes to try to find his copy and sees that it is thrown into the fire. It's halfway burnt, and all the engravings have already been pulled out of it, which is interesting. And I have again, what is your speculation here? Who is the one pulling the engravings out of these books?
It's
the girl with the green eyes.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's Lena Olin.
Oh,
Lena
you think
Olin
it's
I think it's
Telfer?
her demon. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Lena Telfer is. How does? Well, I guess she would know because the guy, the black guy with the blonde hair, is following him. Yeah, when I first watched it, I thought it was Balkan too. That's how I kind of read it. Is that Balkan's the one that is following him, and when he gives him insight, he's the one that's going around doing this. But I was curious what your thoughts were. When I watched the movie first, I thought it was Boris Balkan.
Well, I think that in a sense, we don't know, just like at this point, we don't know about the authenticity of the engravings, right? That there are 3 different versions, and then there are 3 different people going after this, like Balkan, Lena Olin, and then we get who's the last? We have Kessler and Telfer. So Lena Olin is Telfer, and then Boris Balkan, and then Kessler is kind of the final psychopomp that we come across in this. But there's a number of, it's like 3 different people going after the thing, just like there's 3 different versions of the authenticity of the book. And Balkan, I mean, Balkan is so he looms over the rest of the movie because he obviously knows where he's keeping tabs on his employee, just like he would always do. But there's no reason for him not to have 2 different people after the thing without each of them knowing. Global oligarch elite with a publishing elite. So
interesting. Well, we don't. I don't think the movie ever officially reveals who is the one going and pulling the engravings out. Correct?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, I just know that I think it's probably more important in terms of the effect of it. Sometimes, know, the effect also in terms of pulling the book from the fire mimics the death by fire later of Kessler, and also the death by fire of one of the original writers, and of the rarity of books in general. A lot of them are like we mentioned, are saved from the fires in the first place. So it's just they're going through the Odyssey of this again. A reanimation.
So now they're on their way to France to meet with Baroness Kessler to look at her version. But from our understanding, only these 2 people and Boris Balkan know that the engravings are different. The ones that are initialed by Lucifer versus the ones that are initialed by AT. And so, and then he says, see if I can stop it. He says, "Are you my guardian angel?" "Oh, I see. You're my guardian angel." And she says, "If you say so." But again, in my mind, looking back on the film after a few rewatches, she is Lucifer. And she is manipulating everybody, and she is using Corso for the fulfillment of this entire ritual. And Balkan himself, as we'll see at the end, when he does the fire circle and then puts gasoline on himself, it works for a little bit, but then it stops working. And
Also,
Corso drops down below. He drops below the Inferno and then makes his way out. But as we'll see, the true engraving of the Whore of Babylon, there's a bright light coming out of the tower, which is the flames of Vulcan burning himself.
Yeah, we also don't know that. I mean, we know that Balkan doesn't know about the authenticity of the engravings yet, so I'm not sure that he would be pulling the engravings out because he doesn't know at this point. It's a process of discovery. That's the reason for the whole thing. So that's the great reveal to Balkan. I found out that that these are different. You know, that some have Lucifer at the bottom, others don't. There's slight discrepancies between because he was sent on the mission to find the true one, but he doesn't know that they're in all three books. So I'm not sure he would be pulling them out yet.
Right.
That's when he gets to Kessler's. Yeah.
So now we're in France, and he makes his way to Baroness Kessler. Well, I guess he stops by his hotel room first, looks at the burnt copy here, and compares a few things, drinking alcohol.
Also the guy, the concierge right there he has his own secret society, which is the Crossed Keys. There's a society of concierge in I think France, or maybe it's all.
Oh, really?
They belong to, yeah.
Concierge secret society.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's the lesbian secretary of Baroness Kessler. She is a Amazon woman. She's ginormous. And
she's probably a former guard of one of those camps. Is what I would suspect she probably is, yeah.
Monsieur Corso. And so here we are introduced to Baroness Kessler. Again, she doesn't have a right arm, only a left arm, and she's wheelchair bound. Mm-hmm. And she talks about how he's spoken well of in the book collector circles.
Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Corso. Yes, I saw him. As clear as you see me now.
Right. Well, what you're referring to is her claiming that she saw when she was 15 years old the devil, as clear as she's looking at Corso here in this scene. And she admits that she participated in all these satanic orgies and that she was part of the Coven of the Silver Serpent. She
also describes the rituals that she participated in as being like a bunch of, it's just a bunch of celebrities, thinking they're doing something serious, but really it's just sex and drugs and rock and roll, or however she sort of implies that they weren't serious like she is.
Right. You truly believe in the devil, Baroness, he says, and she, enough to devote my life and library to him. So now we see a connection that both Boris Balkan and Baroness Kessler have devoted their entire collector's library to the devil himself. Mm. And she asked him if he believes. He said, almost. This book demands a certain amount of faith. She's talking about the 9 gates. He says, well, I'm afraid my faith's in short supply these days. And once she finds out that he is working for Balkan, she becomes pretty upset and basically demands him to leave.
Alexander Torquia, that's the other author.
Alexander Torquia. Yeah. Besides, my orgy days are over.
Yeah. Which mimics the things that Polanski was involved in.
Right. Do they still meet every year? Victor Fargas is an unbeliever. Did Andrew Telfer ever take part? And then she reveals, Telfer, no. That creature, Liana, married him for his money. So now we're kind of picking up the mystery here of how all this stuff is being tied together. And then she finds out he's working for Boris Balkan. How stupid
she does not like this.
Guessed. Yeah. You have stayed. You are welcome. And she tells him to leave with her left hand there. So he leaves, and there we see the black guy with platinum blonde hair following him. And he kind of chickens out and runs into a little cafe here and just drinks and smokes cigarettes until eventually they turn the lights on. And I actually love this scene right here because now you only see the reflection of Corso himself. Mm-hmm. He's looking back at himself when he's looking at something that's threatening him, something he was afraid of.
That's a good point, yeah.
And this is the scene where he's getting ready to be mugged. Now we see this is actually Liana Tefler's car here with him on the side. We find out that later this is her car. And they try to run him over. He runs down these stairs.
He runs down to the Seine, but it could have been worse, right? He could have been confronted by the Olympics opening ceremony, right? Which would have been way worse in terms of the occult. the ritual chopping off of heads at the opening ceremony with the band playing, showing the decapitation of Marie Antoinette. Oh, France is so glorious.
Right. So he starts to go back up these stairs, and he's going to be confronted by this guy who then knocks him down, trying to grab his book from him. And then there she is. Look at she just flies down from the top.
Yeah.
And ends up saving the day here. She knows Kung Fu. Her martial arts is on point. And then he just sits there, and they kind of make their way back to the hotel here. And then he asks,
see the keys?
Oh, yes. I see that now.
Yeah.
Asks Mr. Gruber for a favor, and basically tells him that he wants him to find out where the man with the platinum blonde hair and Liana Telfer are staying, with the maiden name de Saint Martin, 40-ish, and wants to know what hotel they're in. They go upstairs. He gives her some ice to take care of her. And again, symbolic here, his glasses, he steps on his own glasses. So his vision is getting blurry. He's losing sight of some of the things that are most important. And this is where, he's really diving into this mystery and is going to be consumed by it. But I took that as a symbol in regards to his, moral clarity is being compromised.
I worked as a hotel concierge for a summer.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
We're at the Hilton?
My second summer job. No, it was at a place in Richmond.
Motel 6?
It was at the Hotel John Marshall, now defunct, a very old hotel in Richmond.
Oh, okay.
But that was funny because the hotel hadn't been renovated, and when you took the elevator to any floor, it would always go up to, I forget what floor it was, but it didn't have a 13th floor. And it would take you to, like, let's say the 8th floor. If you went from 1 to 2, it would take you to 8 and then to 2. If you went to 12, it would take you to 8 and then 12. And I asked the dude, the maintenance guy, why is that? And he was like, oh, that's because it's haunted. And I was like, what are you talking about? So we went up on the floor, and it was like a time capsule. It was exactly the same as it was in the 70s, had shag carpet. And I went into one of the corners, and he took me into the corner hotel room, and he said, look at that wall. And in the wall, there were bullet holes in the wall. And I said, what is that? And he said, that's where a guy was taking pot shots down on the street, and they came up and they smoked him right here. And the bullet holes were still in the wall. So, and I was like, yeah. And he was like, I don't mess around on this floor, man. Besides, it's time for lunch. It was like 1 a.m. I had the night shift. But one of the things that I learned is that, this guy can give him, this concierge can look around and ask his other people in his society or whatever for where people are staying. You can do that if you have a relationship with these guys or whatever, and you pay them. But ordinarily you can't do that stuff. But that's the reason why when you call somebody asking for a hotel, if you ask for what room is the person in, they won't give you they won't give you the room number. They'll just connect you with the room, because you can't give out a person's hotel room, a room number, in case, you have somebody unscrupulous looking for them. So if I call the Overlook Hotel and ask what room Jack Torrance is in, they won't say, but they'll connect him. Not that I want to talk to Jack Torrance, but Danny!
Okay. So here, Boris is getting ready to call him again, and the phone's getting ready to ring. And this is a bit of a weird sort of blood ritualistic scene beforehand, where her nose is bleeding. He's getting ready to see the changing of her green eyes. They're sort of hypnotizing him.
Yeah.
You can see he's being lured in here. And then she wipes the blood off her nose, which I did not see that much blood, but she covers his face with her blood. And then he kind of pulls himself out of this trance and wipes the blood off because the phone starts ringing.
Yeah, marking him on the forehead.
Yeah, exactly. He's been marked. That's a great point. He's been blood marked, right? And one of the points that I wanted to make in regards to, again, like a reverse Eucharist, is that blood rituals, human sacrifice, animal sacrifice, this is a serious part, a significant aspect of magical rituals. And people want to say, oh, you Christians are, part of a pagan tradition of human sacrifice. You guys think that you consume God on Sunday. And obviously we drink leavened bread as Orthodox Christians and wine, but through a mystery, through the presence of the Holy Spirit, it is the blood and body of Christ. But at the same time, it's not the literal blood and body of Christ in the sense that it, transubstantiation, like it's actual, the Catholic doctrine. But it's a true symbol. A symbol, symbolo, is being thrown together, two realities. A true symbol, not an empty symbol, but a true symbol brings together two realities into a single point of symbolic significance. And that's how we understand the Eucharist. It truly is Christ's body and blood. And at the same time, it is leavened bread and wine, where we see it within these magic cults and occult rituals, the utilization of blood as the presence of life itself is essential for their manipulation and power. Yeah, it's a Crowleyan baptism. Exactly, Kyle Richard.
A blood baptism. It's also, Jamie and I just covered the Prince Harry book, and this is the exact same that he does there. He said, they're sacrificing the cats.
Don't go to Ohio.
In the Prince Harry book, he talks about how he gets blooded the first time he kills a stag, and they put his face into the stomach of the stag and wipe his face with blood. They say, you've been blooded. And that's exactly what's happened here. They've been drawn first blood, and now he's been marked, and she's part of it with him, or it's part of it with him.
Right. So exactly, he's been marked at this point because he cannot stop himself from going deeper into this mystery now. And he goes downstairs to take the phone call. He doesn't want Green-Eyed Girl to hear what he has to say to Boris Bolkin. Tells him that Fargus has been murdered. That Baroness Kessler wouldn't let him look at her copy when she found out that he was working for him. And he tells him, you need to go back. You have to examine her book. He says, you're not going to let me. Have you seen her secretary? He says, try lunchtime.
Listen to me very closely, Mr. Corso. Right.
That's not a bad impersonation of Boris.
I think you know what kind of lengths I'm willing to go to get what I want.
So this guy,
look at this doofus. This doofus,
and he doesn't
is on
have
the
day
shift.
I didn't pick up on that. Now that you pointed out, he's not part of the concierge secret society here, and he's the one that's going to mess up and allow Liana Tefler into his room to steal the 9 gates back. Here in a few more scenes. But he asked him for a copy machine so that he can take copies of his copies and take them to Baroness Kessler so that she can see the differences between the engravings. So Green-Eyed Girl is gone. She's vanished again like usual. And he tries to hide the book behind this fridge, which turns out not to work well. And again, throw down some shooters on the way. Next day, cleaned up. He's outside Baroness Kessler. He waits for old girl to go on lunch break, and then he makes his way in there and messages the Baroness and lets her know that he has a sort of a peace offering he'd like to extend her way. And she obliges him and allows him to come in. And so,
which the painting in the background right there mimics what he's about to do, right? The supplication of the wise one.
Which paint? This one right here?
No, go back. If you go back a frame when he's walking in.
Okay, let me see if I can.
Right there. Right behind him, right there.
Okay, I'm just gonna hit play for a second.
He's walking in with a peace offering. Yeah.
Oh. Don't want to play too much here.
Yeah.
This one here?
No,
it was the white one?
It was the white one, yeah.
Let's see if I can stop it. Where was it?
A little bit more back. Keep going back, I think. Nope. Oh, we went too far. So quick.
I'm trying to move scene by scene. Oh man, where did it go?
After that. It's right after that.
After this?
Yeah, I think so. That's not important. It was right before. It was the same thing. It was him walking with a peace offering. It was a peace offering for the wise one or whatever, seated just like she is. It's very quick. Yeah, Bonsai says I notice a lot. Well, I'm a noticer. I've been noticing for at least 20 years.
Yeah, we notice everything. If we get our drift.
Yeah. It's so fast.
Where was it?
I don't know. I don't know how I caught that. It might be right there.
There it is.
There
it is. Yep, you nailed it. A sort of peace offering. That's exactly what it is. Man, that is quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so now he goes and sees Mrs. Kessler, and she is offended that he insinuates her copy is a forgery. He says, no, I believe it's genuine. I just believe that to access the 9 gates, you need all 3 copies because the engravings, 3 of the engravings of each copy are from Lucifer himself, demonstrating what is actually meant. And so he begins to show her the differences in the copies. And she becomes convinced. And she said, okay, well, let's look at my copy. And then here he's showing the differences of a
game of chess.
The game of chess, the different boards.
These are stages in the wasteland as well. These are the names of the various sections. There's 5 sections in the wasteland. Death by water is one of them, and a game of chess is another. Also, what the thunder said, the fire sermon. We sort of get those as we're going through this thing.
Yeah, Elon Musk has his pattern noticing.
That's right.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
And this is the prince and the pauper playing in a game of chess right here. The game of nations.
Okay, let's go to. Eventually, she's going to take him and allow him access to her copy. So now she's like, take as long as you need, Mr. Corso. And so he starts looking at her copies. And of course, just as he speculated, here's the Boris Balkan writing to Frida Kessler, Baroness Kessler. And it is the same castle that we saw in his library that we pointed out earlier. And so now he's starting to look at what she has. And of course, she has the 3 that the other 2, the Fargus copy and the Balkan copy, don't have. And then he's knocked out. So right here, we're going to see a very dramatic scene. The music gets very suspenseful, and bam, he gets knocked out unconscious.
She also won't let him smoke. Right. My invitation did not extend to smoking, Mr. Corso.
I wouldn't either. If I had a collection of rare books, I wouldn't want anything to possibly damage or smear any of the copies, but to each their own. I know you take offense to that. I'm sorry, my brother. I'm kidding. And so he wakes up and you can hear her
smoking over this Masonic ritual book right here.
So you can hear that it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. Her wheelchair is like pounding into the wall, and you can hear this noise when he wakes up. Again, he's disheveled, not sure what's going on, puts his glasses back on, and sees her just bouncing off the wall over here. And see if I can stop on her face. It's so hard. Here we go.
Yeah. She's been strangled right there.
She's been strangled by her own scarf.
Silence is golden, right? She's talking. Her tongue's ripped out.
Right. And he her wheelchair, her electric wheelchair is in full go. So he turns her around on accident and she just busts through the door.
That's right.
And this is what you were referring to in regards to the death by fire compared with Fargus, the second gentleman, the second company, who is death by water. Again, we can, and I pointed that out in the symbolism was the the dualism, the duality of deception. But this isn't about deception, but it's certainly a duality between water and fire, both of which kill the two people who have the other copies.
And it's interesting how history plays out, right, with the book. Obviously her library is going to go up in flames, which they would have in the medieval era. I mean, she said this, I wouldn't have said this 300 years ago. And her book, and nevertheless, these infernal books are going to end up in the inferno.
Right.
And also her paintings also, you know, indicate, I mean, there's one painting like with a volcano in the background.
Yes, that was the one that's in her office. We may be able to see that here in the next scene. I just want to give a shout out. Storm the Cat threw in $10. Thank you very much, Storm the Cat. Right. He said, do you think in Revelation, when the beast destroys the whore of Babylon, this is like the ultimate example of false dialectics because both sides are evil, but people think the beast is a hero? Yeah, I absolutely do. And I think it's indicative of even the symbolism of this film, where evil is self-destructive. It destroys itself.
Yeah.
Both of the people who have the copies end up dead, but also Boris Balkan, he, in an attempt to gain divine power from Satan, ends up killing himself. And of course, we saw Mr. Telfer hang himself, although his wasn't really from participation, as we find out. It's more so from what his wife was up to. Yeah. But I mean,
well, he's the hanged man, and then there was the tarot hanged man that occurred
right
later, and also all the people don't just end up dead. They don't just die of you know, living out their life, and you know, we don't know the time nor the place. I mean, these people are all murdered violently or murder themselves.
Right. So, do you have any speculation on the whore of Babylon and the beast, or you're basically with me? Or
yeah, I'm with you. I mean, we think that Telfer is thinks that she's a kind of whore of Babylon, but it ends up being someone else in this. And
right.
Yeah. Same thing. I will say one more thing about Telfer, which is interesting because there were the keys on the concierge. But one thing about her is that we're going to notice that she has the tattoo of the silver serpent on her thigh. And I kind of see that as an inversion of, you know, in Revelation that, you know, that Christ returns with King of Kings and Lord of Lords on his thigh and on his vestments. And this is a kind of inversion of that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And the silver serpent also is kind of like Astra Argentum, the order of the silver star, the circle within the circle in terms of the golden dawn with Crowley.
Right.
So she's a kind of serpent in the garden here, I suppose.
Right. And then major thank you to Pim Orselves, who says, great stream, DPH and BLA. I always get this movie confused with The Secret Window.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad, I mean, I can see why you're confused by that. Secret Window is one of the Stephen King books that's that has Johnny Depp again as an author, with slightly longer hair, but he's unkempt like this, and he's got almost the same glasses. But that's a one of the sort of now classic works of DID.
Right.
And they were made around the same time. So
thank you very much, Pim and Storm the Cat. God bless you guys. Thank you for the support. And so here, I think the movie gets very interesting from this point forward here. Again, much more suspenseful, putting all the pieces together. He wants to reach, again, we see the desire for the power of knowledge. He wants to reach for this copy. He ends up not getting it. I believe he lets it burn. It's too hot. And so then he runs into the secretary, knocks all her oranges down the stairs.
Yeah, and oranges in film dropping like this are a symbol of death. It kind of comes from The Godfather, but whenever oranges drop in a film, it's always someone that's died. So that's what we see here.
I see. So now he's trying to, again, shake all the death that is occurring around him and everything that's going on. This I thought was really interesting. Again, how it's like blue smokish and people start screaming once they start spraying water on it. Again, very, very indicative of like witchcraft and a witch burning, right? That's what I took that as, is that Baroness Kessler is a witch. And this is kind of a symbolism to indicate that being the case. Then he goes back, notices that the rag, once he does a double shooter here, trying to get rid of.
He likes his red label. That's right.
And so he sees the rag that was around the Balkan copy on the floor. And so he tries to look behind the fridge where he was hiding the book. And of course it is gone. So in a panic, he rushes downstairs to ask the concierge if anybody went into his room. And of course, we see the man here who's sleeping in the last scene he was in. Now he let his wife go up to his room. Well, of course, he doesn't have a wife, and that was Liana Telfer.
I was just looking up. She lives. Her office was on Anjou Street, and I was just thinking of the Duke of Anjou. And he was the youngest son of Henry I of France and Catherine de Medici. It doesn't really mean much. It's just that there's just another tie-in with these sort of elites, ancestral, hereditary elites,
right?
That we get throughout this thing,
right? So he finds out that it's Liana Telfer based on the description. Boris Balkan then calls, and he's trying to tell him everything that he's found. He's got all 9 engravings now, but Balkan's copy has been stolen. And here in the next scene, he'll write a I don't know, a memo, some type of fax to Balkan to let him know it's Liana Telfer.
Yeah, I love the scene because we hear Balkan in his looming voice on the telephone, and he switches so fast. He says, "Great, I'm over at the Ritz. You can send it over immediately."
Yeah,
what do you mean you don't have it?
For you at the desk.
What do you mean you don't have it? And then the next frame, listen to me very closely, Mr. Corso.
See if I can.
I think you may already have some idea of the lengths to which I'm willing to go. I think you'll just discover just how far that will be.
Yeah, and then he hangs up on him.
Yeah.
Then he sees this girl, and he thinks that she stole the book, which she says, "If I stole it, would I be here?" Tall, dark, and then he tells them what suite they're staying at, and send this to Mr. Balkan. Lets him know, and then of course they steal a Dodge Viper.
It's great. It's a great scene.
Hot car back in the day. Yeah. I guess they do that in this scene. So they go into their hotel, find that they've already left, and they're down in the lobby getting ready to leave. There's the black man with the platinum blonde hair who keeps trying to kill him. And he's trying to get a taxi. No Frenchman wants to give him a ride. And so Satan Girl just grabs a bright red Dodge Viper, the most conspicuous vehicle you could find.
Well, again, everything he's ridden in had some sort of red marking on it. The Sikh with the red hat, so of course they're getting in the red Crimson Death vehicle to follow them.
The scarlet marking.
You don't think you could have picked anything more conspicuous, do you? This guy was some sort of, he's got like a sheikh bandana. Yeah. I wish he ties with the cell phone cord.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, that was pretty clever. That's a foreshadowing of France now, I suppose.
Oh, that's a great point by Rusty. Rusty Beltway says Viper is a snake. That's a good one. I didn't put that together. So he tells her to pull around them because they're gonna figure out that they're tailing them.
Well, what are they in? Are they in a Rolls Royce Phantom?
Yeah.
Little bit of comic relief here from the little French color.
So they're on their way. Then they find Saint Martin. They Saint Martin, the family estate, the chateau that Liana Telfer is having her satanic ritual at. They find their way, and then they find this Frenchman and ask where the chateau is. And again, symbolic. He says it's behind the church. I took that, maybe I'm reading too much into it again, but I take that as symbolic again, that this is what we're getting ready to enter into, something in the outskirts. It's behind the light of Christ. It's behind the church. And so they make their way out to the estate and see a very...
Also, the town is called Saint Martin. I mean, her family owns the whole town, right? It's all named. It's named for her. It's the entire estate.
So there's sort of an eyed wide shut vibe as they drive by here with all the candle lit driveway, and so they kind of make their way onto the scene.
That's got to be the R child. That's got to be a Rothschild mansion or something.
I could believe that.
Yeah.
So he kind of climbs up the light pole to see. Everybody's dressed in these black robes. Clearly, a sort of satanic ritual is about to occur.
Yeah.
And so they get to the back where they climb up on this gate and this terrace and get to the patio of the bedroom of Liana Telfer. And they can see that she is nude and dressed in all black. They go in there and then end up getting the copy back from her. But then her little boyfriend comes in and she runs to the drawer here and pulls a pistol on him.
He does like a weird movement. He's like, this guy. They're wearing the same kind of black, weird, shimmering robes that, if you've ever seen Interview with the Vampire, when Antonio Banderas comes onto the stage in France with his people and they eat the girl on stage and everybody thinks it's a melodrama, but they're just a bunch of demon creatures like consuming a woman on the stage, right in full view, revelation of the method. And they're wearing the same sort of uniforms.
A public ritual like that gives it more power, which is tied with everything we see at like Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Lady Gaga concerts. There's a power in doing these things publicly where people don't realize what they are participating in through the observation of it.
Did you see the weekend Playboy Cardi concert in Brazil? Like it just happened. It was it's crazy because they're in a mansion. I mean, the stage is set with a mock statue of Christ, in Brazil, but it's actually the Weeknd in a Crowley and OTO robe with gloves on. And there's a statue. I mean, the stage is set like a castle, just like this, or like when they show the city of Dis in paintings and it blood red flames. There's a screen in the background of somebody hitting on glass, like are in flames, trying to get out of hell. And then the all-seeing eye occurs. And then there are a bunch of priestesses walking around in red robes. It's pretty crazy.
Right. Shout out to Circle G, throws in $5, says Duke of Anjou. I love a good French.
Oh, there you go. And you can see, by the way, you saw the cooks when they were walking up. You saw the chefs in the basement making these fantastic meals for these people. And it's also indicative of, a medieval life pushed forward into the 20th century. I mean, this is a fantastic chateau where you have a bunch of lords and ladies or modern day, celebs or whoever coming, and they come to the ritual and they stay at the castle. In the medieval era, you would, like in Macbeth, the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements, they bring in if the king wants to come stay with you, then they have to put him up for a month. And it's exactly what they're doing at this place.
Right. So now she orders her boyfriend to take them down to the basement. So he's with a pistol walking them down. And here we see the transformation of the Corso character where he beats this guy to death. And you see the Lucifer lady like smile in glee while she watches him do this. And so he says, watch out. And he pulls the hand with the pistol over his shoulder, essentially judo throwing this guy down the stairs and then beating him to a pulp with a shoe. And see if we can, gosh, it's so hard to catch scene by scene. She is happy. It goes, oh, I didn't know you had it in you.
Yeah. George W. Bush style. Throw those shoes at that man, but again, degradation with his shoe. And the castle, I mean, looks like the engravings also.
I bet if we were able to stop it, I bet it's the left foot shoe. Again, reflective of the opening scene with the guy who kills himself.
Yeah.
I suspect. Could be, maybe not, but it would make sense. So the serpent is a beast that never sleeps. Corso dresses up as he's participating in this ritual. Again, it's not about beliefs, it's about actions. So whether he believes in Satan or not, he is now participating in this ritual. And she's doing this conjuration, a beast whose eyes can see through the mirror of science. I mentioned that earlier, talking about Satan. I thought that was a really interesting line. We won't be afraid of the noose or the blade or the poison. And we give loyalty to you, Lord. We devote our bodies and souls to you. We'll walk intact through the lepers and the plague. We devote our bodies and souls to you.
Gil Bates is in there. Bezos, Taylor Swift.
Right. And so here we see Boris Balkan just kind of alpha male this scene. He just walks in.
Bam! He opens those doors. Yeah.
And mumbo jumbo. He just yells at these people that these
only I alone know the secrets of the great master.
Right. And so we can see the silver serpent here, right? Wrapped around the sort of altar. We can see the serpent on the tree of life behind here, the original temptation. We see the upside down pentagram, which they all are wearing. And he just takes the book just straight from her. And just kills her right in front of everybody.
Boo. Yeah. He does this boo.
And, you know, to me, I thought this scene is really interesting because these people, you know, from the outside, it's kind of spooky. All these people dressed in these black robes. They're all naked. They're getting ready to do this summoning of the devil and then participate in this mass orgy. And this man, who really is evil, he just barges in a pinstripe suit and just mocks these people and just kills a woman right in front of them.
Yeah.
So
I alone am worthy to enjoy the fruits of the great master. Yeah.
Yeah, to determine my own destiny.
Yeah, they're just
You're insane, Boris. And then he begins choking her, right? And these people are stooges. They don't stop. They don't help. I mean, if all these people wanted to kill Boris Balkan, they could easily stop this from happening, but they're weak. And so he just starts choking her right there on the stage. And then Corso, we see a sort of remnant of his morality left. He wants to stop this from happening. He goes up to actually stop Boris Balkan from killing Liana Tefler. And she then flies down from above to, don't, Corso, don't.
Yeah.
And then prevents him from stopping it right here. He's getting ready to hit Boris Balkan over the head. And he just chokes her out with her own upside down pentagram.
Death by pentagram.
Yeah, and this is the scene where you go, boo, and these people just run away. Again, and to me, highlighting the difference between somebody who truly embodies evil and is willing to do anything versus people that are kind of superficial actors, you know, pretending to be Satanists. They're just there to have a big sex orgy, sort of satanic grifters, if you will, cosplay. And so now he has the book, he has all 9 engravings, and he's ready to go perform his ritual. But now we see that Corso is driven by the knowledge to know what it all means. And he runs after Boris Balkan. Of course, he's already fleeing in his Land Rover. So he gets into the, is this a phantom? I bet it is. And drives after him and refuses to take her with him.
Look at the flames in the background while she's talking. There you go. There's a Kubrick stare.
Yeah. Kubrick stare.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Screw this. I came for the orgy. Yeah. So we can see that she's up to something, and she's not who she appears to be. And he's chasing him. Boris Balkan's trying to ditch him. He's making all types of crazy turns. And right here, he goes across the river, the abyss here. Of course, the Land Rover makes it. And the old style Phantom that he's in does not, stalls out in the river here. And so he's going to have to walk on.
He could have made that. That boy not from the South. He don't know how to ford a river in a Range Rover. You need to get with Whistling Diesel and learn how to do that.
So then he realized he has the pistol that Liana Tefler got from the drawer, and then her little henchman had that he beat to death with his shoe. And so now we see he's barefoot and he's drinking wine, and he's in this little cafe, small French town cafe run by a sort of mom and pop family here. And he's looking at all the evidence that he has, and he sees again that postcard. Remember that painting that's on the wall in Boris Balkan personal library that very few people have ever entered. And he asks her, where is this? And she goes and gets her husband, and then he shows him where exactly that particular castle is, and now he's on his way, hitchhiking. He's with the sheep.
The rainbow,
and look, he's in the back with the sheep, but he's a sheep and wolf's, or he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, right?
Yeah.
According to Baroness Kessler.
That's right.
And so we're seeing again the symbols all come together here at the end of the movie. And so now he's walking up, and there it is, right on the mountaintop or the hilltop. And he makes his way in there.
Yeah, into this old Norman chateau right here, and looks down just like the lady was looking down on him from the gate in the library. He's looking down on him with his makeshift altar and his floor that's the floor is gonna fall out from under him, but he's right here in the gateway.
Right. And Boris Balkan here is putting all the engravings together, getting ready to do his ritual, counting them all out, has all 9, and starts reciting what each one of them mean: to travel in silence by a long and secured road.
With 2 fingers also, but on his left hand, like he's
left hand again, exactly.
Yeah, like he's doing an inversion of the sign of Christ's sign, and he is he's there with his lantern. The lantern also is a Masonic symbol, but it's like he's going through the process of reading tarot, his tarot here.
Right. And gain the last key that will unlock the 9th gate. And then he looks up, Corso? You're not wanted here, Mr. Corso.
It really is amazing. I mean, the film is really well done. I mean, the stage design in this, with the floor that falls out, and then the lack of a roof. So he's looking up into the sky here, and he's in the tower of the old chateau. He's come exactly to the place where he started from the beginning, but it was through a circuitous route.
Right.
And we're going to find who is the true supplicant here. I mean, he was just in that scene, drinking wine with his shoes off, as if he's some sort of pilgrim coming to this place. And it's so well done because one thing I'll say about the film is that most films, especially like this, lose it about 3/4 of the way through. The action takes over, and we get away from the narrative, and the dialogue becomes, weakened as a result of they're trying to fit in the action at the end. But this is pretty cohesive towards the end.
Right.
It stays with the same pace throughout.
Right. And so Balkan's getting ready to perform his ritual. And as we already said, the 9th engraving of the Whore of Babylon riding the beast, the actual engraving has a bright light shining out of the tower at the chateau, which is going to be the burning of the flames of Balkan himself.
Yeah.
But at this point, we don't know this as the viewer for the first time. And he tells him that, these are, you've killed for these. They're worth more than money. Well, as we find out, of course, Corso has been killing for these as well. It's not just Balkan. And he says, in spite of our differences, I'm touched. We have something in common, you and I. We share the same passion. You've developed the same obsession, haven't you?
Well, and the 7th, remember the 7th gate is the disciple surpasses the master. Balkan fails to realize this.
Right.
He thinks
you're out of your depth. Kindly go, Mr. Corso. And I'm not leaving here empty-handed. Don't even think about it. And then he pulls out a pistol, the pistol that's in his pocket. And he can't pull the trigger yet. It's not in him. And then he breaks through the floor here. Again, kind of in limbo between 2 worlds.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Limbo between 2 worlds here. And Balkan just decides, instead of killing him, he's going to let him see the power of this magic ritual. And he said, people have died for the last, 300, or he's getting ready to say 300 years. Looks like you already said it, but tells him he can watch, and he begins pouring gasoline in a circle. Oh yeah, here it is. Just people have been disemboweled just for a glimpse of what you're getting ready to witness. and he does his prayer to Satan. And as you said, here it is: erase me from the book of life and inscribe me in the black book of death.
Yeah, damning himself.
Yep, exactly. And he has the mark of the, these 3 claw marks from Liana Tefler on his cheek, like it's from a sort of rabid animal.
Yeah.
Sort of not the mark of the beast, but a mark of a beast, certainly. And so let it be so now. And then he begins to perform this ritual, and he believes it's all working. He feels invincible. He puts his hand in the fire, and the fire doesn't burn. He doesn't even feel the heat. He starts laughing in glee here. I'm plunging my hands in fire, Mr. Corso.
Yeah, he can walk. He says, I can float in air. I can walk on water. Nope. Sorry. Only one can do that.
Right. I feel no heat. And then he says, well, let's see a little bit more. And then he begins to pour gasoline all over himself. Says another phrase in Latin, and then becomes caught on fire and claims he can't feel it. It's all good. And then all of a sudden it starts to not work. And now he's covered in gasoline and he's getting ready to burn to death. Starts screaming. Corso falls through the floor. He's now beneath the inferno. He's truly in the underworld. And when he reemerges from the underworld, he reemerges with the power, meaning he's taking the engravings, he's taking the book back, and he has the will to pull the pistol out and kill Balkan right there. And now he's leaving the castle here. And of course, lo and behold, who do you think is there?
This is really a wild sequence right here. This really got to me the first time I saw it, because, to consider what Boris Balkan wants, which is admittance to the through the 9th gate, to walk in as a human into hell, is just, it's pretty outrageous.
Right.
And with the flaming castle behind him here and the dark tower in flames. I continuously think of, there's a very famous painting of Dante and Virgil at the gates of the city of Dis, which is in flames, across this river. And it really does. This is really what it looks like to me, how they staged it. Takes off his glasses so he has eyes to see.
Right.
And then we get into the Crowleyan sex magic ritual.
Right. And so now we start seeing her eyes.
Yeah.
They start making out in the car. And next thing we know, they are performing the ritual right here and there.
The way her face changes here is...
See if I can catch it. I'm afraid to play too much.
Yeah. It's right after this. Right.
Just wait 1 second, just so that the algorithm doesn't pick anything up.
Yeah.
We'll just do this, and then we'll bring it back up.
There we go.
There, it shouldn't catch anything.
Hey, look at that.
Did I miss it?
No, it's keep going. We saw a different face in her face.
Right.
But...
yeah, there was a sort of flash of a...
yeah.
And then he's consummating this relationship inside the Whore of Babylon.
Ugh.
And then...
yeah, it'd be too quick. We can't see it. There's one frame of a face she makes, which is...
now they're in the car together. And he says, is the game over now? For Balkan it is, not for you. Why didn't it work for Balkan? The 9th engraving was a forgery. Oh, really? And she says, you're almost out of gas. So he stops to get gas, pumping the car, probably goes in to get some cigs. And he comes back, she's gone. And she has written on the 9th engraving here that the brothers have it. Siniza Bros. So he goes back to Lisbon, Portugal. Of course, the brothers aren't there. And the guys that are in there, they don't know anything about the brothers. So, and look, the door's different. It's now a restaurant, or no, it is a
restoration of books.
Yeah, restoration of books, but it says English spoken. Yeah, so it's where he was with the brothers, but the dang, I got to play again. There we go. Now the guys are dismantling everything. They don't know who it is. They're getting ready to take down this bookshelf, and right at the end, a piece of paper falls, and he picks it up. And it is the actual engraving. And here we see the light of the Chateau Castle. We see the whore riding the beast. And he's beginning to put together what really just occurred. And then this is where the scene that you discussed at the very beginning of the stream, this is the ending scene right here.
Yeah, and the doors, the ninth gate opens up to him, and he walks into illumination. So he's gone through the entire alchemical tarot Luciferian Odyssey into being, the disciple, I suppose, surpasses the master. What's the final gate called? Now I know that from darkness comes light. There you go.
And that's it. And that concludes the film, and it's just a bright light, and then it goes straight to the credits.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that is a real chateau. That's a real place also in France, not just a green screen or something. Yeah, it's really dark. I mean, the way the face changes in that is really, really well done, really terrifying when they're doing that Crowley, consummation ritual at the end, because if people go back and watch that, there is one particular frame of a shot, which is really, she doesn't look feminine anymore. She looks like a masculine Lucifer that appears. And it's very different from how she appeared before. So that's, that's the consummation.
Thank you so much, Jason. He says, great film and great analyzers, DPH and BLA. Really appreciate that. And as I said before, I think this is a very good film. I've seen it now 3 times. And again, the sort of, if you're a bibliophile, if you're interested in some of these occult films just for symbolism's sake and looking at archetypes and meaning, I think it's a fascinating film. It's suspenseful. You go on this adventurous journey, uncovering the engravings and a sort of demonic message. I think it's a good film. I mean, I would recommend, like I said before, you can watch. This is a film you can watch multiple times. I know BLA said he's seen it like 1,000 times.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it 322 times. I've seen it many, many times. I got the DVD here. I just watched it. I just watched it again 2 weeks ago. I watch it a few times a year. It's a really well done movie.
It is,
and it's probably in my opinion, it's the best. It's probably Polanski's best movie, even though it's obviously the darkest movie. This to me is way better. It's different, but it's way better than Rosemary's Baby. It's kind of a companion piece to that, or a bookend. But it's also, again, one of these twin pillars of the 1999 movies. This and it's just incredible to think that this and Eyes Wide Shut came out the same year. I mean, they are so, they're the most Luminate confirmed. And we don't really see movies like this anymore that are so revelatory, so dark, and but the movie is so well done.
Right.
I think that's the thing about someone like Polanski is that, for being all the stuff that we know and, that we think about all of the creeper stuff and, his constant occult material within his movies, which is like blatant. It's a through line through, with all of his movies. But this one is really so cohesive and so well done. It's visually stunning. It's got a great script. It's based on this book. If anybody wants to read Le Club du Mas, the book on which it's based. So yeah, I think this is a good one to do. It's again, in terms of symbolism, esoteric symbolism, the occult. I mean, this is like one of the movies. You would have to watch this.
I would agree. I think this is one of the better occult movies for sure.
Yeah.
So, anything you want to leave with the people? Again, a major thank you and shout out to Aaron for sponsoring today's stream. He's been very supportive of both me and BLA, and we appreciate you, brother. And we wish you and the family the absolute best. God bless you, and thanks again just for the support and sponsoring streams. And if anybody wants for BLA to sponsor a stream, be it a book review, movie review, feel free to reach out to him or send him some money on his PayPal, his Cash App, let him know what you're interested in. And of course, you can always do so over at my website as well. And if you want us to do a movie review together, feel free. You can purchase that at my website and split that with BLA. So any final comments?
Well, thank you to Dr. Head out there. Really appreciate you. Really thank you to Justin for sent me $10. Do I see BLA and DPA analyze another kick-ass movie? Yes, sir. You did. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you to, let's see. I got a call. Maybe that was from last time. Thank you to Jason. Jason sent me $10. Hey, thank you, Jason. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Jason.
Really, thank you so much. And I think we had one more in here. Thank you to Ethan sent me $8. I think that was for a birthday stream. Thank you so much, Ethan. Really appreciate you. Yeah, you guys keep sponsoring these streams, the movie streams, especially these. You know, if you're going to sponsor a stream, please give us a list of stuff that we can pick from. And we had a great list this time, and this one was the first one on the list. So really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And again, I would urge people to go watch movies. I'll be doing a stream on. I just watched a movie called Blink Twice, which I'll probably be covering that, and the new Afraid movie, which is about the demonic AI in the house. We'll see how that goes. I've got a couple of sponsored streams to get through coming up, and I'll be doing more Shakespeare and a bunch more stuff, and especially for spooky season, you can come on over to my channel.
Oh yeah, we're in
a membership
spooky season for sure.
Yeah, we're getting into it hard here. And
what's your favorite Halloween movie?
It's hard to say. I mean, I have a few. The one that comes to mind right away when I think Halloween movies is I love Lost Boys. Lost Boys is like one of the key spooky season movies because it's not too scary. It's got a great soundtrack. Michael, Death by Stereo. You missed, sucker. All the great lines in the movie. It's got sexy sax man playing his scenes. It's got a Doors element.
Kyle Richards said he would love to see us review Da Vinci Code. Well, we would love to do that. Sponsor the stream, and BLA and I will absolutely do the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, you can also Jamie and I did an analysis of The Lost Symbol, which was the Dan Brown book. We covered that over on her channel.
Oh, nice.
We could cover the Da Vinci Code. Well, he also, he one of his movies goes into elements of Dante's Inferno. I've done a Dante's Inferno analysis. I've done a bunch of analyses that relate to this sort of thing. So you can come over to the archives and check that out. I would say my other favorite spooky season movie, which is kind of spooky season, but it takes place in October, is Donnie Darko. I did that last year with Jim Bob. I might do it again because it's just so illuminating. There's so much into it. I mean, I just rewatched it the other day. And I found something else that I hadn't seen. I've seen the movie 100 times, and I never noticed that there is a subliminal image of Watership Down, the bunnies in there, because there's the bunny with, why are you wearing that bunny suit, right? In Donnie Darko. So, yeah, but we're going to be getting into that pretty hard. So,
Bat says, isn't Lost Boys about gay vampires?
Well, yeah, vampires are fake and gray, certainly. But dude, it's got Kiefer Sutherland. They're on motorcycles. And what it's actually really about is Peter Pan. That's why it's the Lost Boys, right? They're the Lost Boys. They want to live forever because instead of being Lost Boys in Never Never Land, they're Lost Boys being vampires living forever as living death.
What's the movie I saw when I was a kid? I've seen it once. It's a vampire movie. I think it has Brad Pitt in it.
That's Interview with the Vampire. As Norm Macdonald said about that movie, not gay enough. That was his review. So that's the ultimate. Yeah, that's the ultimate one of those. Also, there's the reboot of Nosferatu coming out with I think it's got Nicolas Cage and Willem Dafoe in it. That's going to be big. That's coming out in October. Shadow of the Vampire is really great. That came out like 24 years ago. That's got Willem Dafoe as Nosferatu, and it's got John Malkovich as F.W. Murnau, the filmmaker. Man, monkey. So I like vampires. I like vampire stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
I always liked as a kid to be a little bit scared. So I always liked Halloween and Halloween movies. That was always a fun time for me.
I'm the total opposite. I hated horror movies. I
Not
didn't like
horror movies too much.
I didn't like scary movies. I didn't really like any of that. I mean, I was the Wolfman for Halloween one year when I was like 8, and I was total badass, dude. I mean, I had the whole get up. I had like I was a scary Wolfman. But yeah, I like it a lot more now.
Yeah.
I think horror movies really are kind of at the forefront of movie making right now. They just, for some reason, they're doing very well, and they tend to be the most well done. I think I covered Hereditary recently. I think that The Witch is a very well done movie.
It's the least woke is the horror movies.
No, I don't think they're necessarily the least woke. They just, because they all kind of have those elements. But in terms of movie making and how well movies are made, like they used to be done, and how revelatory they are for things that we see and that we know are happening, they just are the best, the most well done movies right now. We don't really get that from drama very much, and that's kind of as a result of the writer's strike. We're still getting like sort of like effects from that, where we're not really getting that much content. You don't really get any comedies anymore.
No, comedy's terrible. Nothing's that funny.
And the action movies are either AI driven, or they have the veneer of being AI driven. They just seem synthetic. There's just not a lot being made right now. I'm sure it'll come about. I mean, we always have cycles in film. So the late 90s was great in film. 2007, 2008 had like amazing movies. Then 2015, another cycle of like great movies. And then we get this lull period. And we're kind of in the middle of that right now. I mean,
what is the best movie in the last 5 years? Because almost all the movies we do are like 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah. I know I've got a couple that would come to mind if I could sit down and think about it. Because I've seen a couple of really well done movies over the past couple of years, but it's usually like one or two very good movies, and that's it. I can't think of any right now. Yeah. That's not great, you know.
Right.
That's not good. That's not a great sign.
I take most of my movie cues from you. So if you tell me something came out and it's pretty good, I'll go check it out. Yeah. Storm the Cat just threw in $5 and says there's this found footage horror movie called A Warning to the Curious, and it's pretty spooky. You ever heard of that?
No, I've never heard that one. But I'm kind of hesitant. You know, I'm wary of found footage movies in general. I'm sure if you say it's good, I'm sure it's good. But yeah, Jason brings up Dune. I mean, I think Dune 2.
No, Dune was a good one.
I think Dune
I'll give you that.
2 were very well done. Yeah. I think that that Villeneuve is probably the best filmmaker right now, bar none. All of his movies have been fantastic, all the way. If you watch Enemy or you watch Prisoner, I mean, Prisoners is one of the best. I mean, of course, that's like going back now to like 2012. But Enemy was good. The Dune movies are great. I think those are well done, but that's very far, few and far between. I think Mandy is probably the best movie of the last 10 years. It's my favorite movie, the one with Nick Cage, by Panos Cosmatos. That's a great one. Yeah. but not many.
No, there isn't that many. Well, if you say there's a good one that comes out, I'll definitely watch it. But I feel like for the last almost decade, hadn't been a lot of great movies but I enjoyed Dune 2. I watched Dune 1 and 2. I thought Blade Runner was pretty decent with the newer one.
Yeah. I also think that movie stars we're getting some people who've been around for a while who are like coming out to being very good actors. Like, I don't know what people think of this, but I really think Shia LaBeouf is one of the underrated actors. Not just because of like what we've seen from him personally, but I think that the difference between real actors and real film and the pretense of being in a film or being an actor is really becoming clear. Like, I generally, like anything with any of the Marvel people, even in other movies now, I could kind of stay away from. It's just not great. People like Chris Hemsworth they're just terrible to me. They're just put in front of a camera and they are acting like they're acting, but it's not a real thing. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, what's the next stream you got lined up?
I think I'm going to do this stream on, well, I got Thursday night on Boiler Room. Please go over to Alternate Current Radio because I'll be doing more Prince Harry and the book Spare with Jamie, because that'll be great. We just did that on her stream. Please check that out. You know, people will probably hear that if they haven't seen it, and they'll think like, oh, I don't care about that. You know, but you should, because this was a good example of a book that I wanted to cover for a long time, because I thought, you know, look, there's a major autobiography by a major elite figure, and everybody in the world hates this guy. There's got to be something else about this. You know, it's just my sort of instinct. And I read it going into it thinking it would be absolutely terrible. And it was the total opposite. It was a really interesting read, and like a really strange honesty from this character who didn't really have anything to lose. And we found a lot in the book. There's a lot of stuff that speaks about the way the world works, and a voice from this guy, no matter what you think of him. I mean, just check out what we read in the book. So check that on Thursday. And then I'll be coming up with, I can't decide what Shakespeare I'm going to do next, but I'll be doing Shakespeare and a couple other things coming up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I will be back Thursday doing an overview of the history of Serbia and Serbian Orthodoxy. And I will be joined by Posh Redneck, the Posh Redneck. I needed to get a Serbian involved. I just felt inadequate to do an entire overview. I mean, that's a big task of Serbia and Serbian martyrs, Serbian saints, Serbian Orthodox Church. So I'm very gracious that he has agreed to join me. We'll be doing that Thursday night, and I plan on doing something else Friday. And then Sunday is my 35th birthday, and we'll be having a fun birthday stream, looking at TikTok. And if BLA, if you're available, feel free to join. I was just going to have friends be able to, if they're available, you can hop on. We're just going to look at all the wild and craziness on TikTok. The chat can tell us to search different things. I mean, it's going to be a free for all.
Let me plug two things real quick also, because I'll definitely be there. And happy early birthday. September is the best month.
Happy belated to you. Everybody say happy birthday to BLA in the chat. His birthday was it was Saturday. What, 3 or 4 days? Yeah.
Yeah, Saturday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought 3 days ago.
Yeah. We had a good little spooky season Twilight themed party or whatever. We had the birthday. We went over Chucky. You can get a membership and go check out the stream I did with Hesher and Maddie, Real Cooter Brown. We went over Phantasm and Chucky, which was fun. But I'll definitely be there for that. Also, to plug a filmmaker that I know, one of my friends, Toby Harvard, makes really great films, and he's got a film that's already been made. It's about to premiere in the United States, and it's called Bookworm. It's a totally wholesome movie. So I can't wait to see it. It's already come out in New Zealand where it was made. And it's got Elijah Wood in it. That'll be really good. And also, you know, it's a weird time. It's a weird time for people. You know, we go through these cycles, and you've been covering the political stuff. Like, so we get the best takes here and at JD and stuff. And I think that, you know, just everybody out there, remember to keep in touch with your family and friends. You know, we've got friends. I want to give a shout out to Rachel, based homeschool mom, to Andy. I want to give a shout out to Jerry at Exposing Powerful Lies, and all of our friends out there. Yeah. We love them, and keep in touch with those family and friends, everybody.
Yep. Make sure you tell somebody close to you love them, and mend any relationships that need to be mended. It's well worth it.
There you go. That's the movie.
Here, right, I pulled up your friend's movie, The Bookworm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, cool. But he's got another one in the works. I can't say what it is, but he's got another one in the works right now, which is hopefully going to get made and is going to be huge movie. So cool. But that's the one he's got coming out. Yep.
Very cool. Well, thank you again, brother. Thanks, you to Aaron and for sponsoring today's stream. God bless you, and God bless you, BLA, and all the work you do. Appreciate you. Love you, man. And wish you nothing but the best.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me, bro. Love coming on here. Thanks, everybody in the chat, too. Love y'all.
All right. I will see you guys next time. As always, until then, God bless.